Thinking Tackle Podcast.
Welcome to the Thinking Tackle Podcast. Joining us today in the studio is Ash Bradbury. Now, Ash is the owner of Tails Up Baits and runs Ashbury Fisheries, formerly known as Cleveley Mere. Now, he's built up a strong reputation around the UK carp fishing scene for being a highly versatile and prolific big carp angler, having been successful on numerous waters such as Tolpits and the Essex Manor, to name but a few. Now, notably, Ash was responsible for bringing the adjustable zig rig to the forefront of carp fishing. As well as this, he's helped create other items of tackle and equipment that many of you will use today. Now, Ash might not be a household name to some of you, but trust us, this is a highly interesting and insightful podcast. So we hope you enjoy the show. About 2 years without having a McDonald's.
Oh, if only.
Yeah.
I don't know why someone's not done like a healthy drive-through.
That's all they need to do,
mate.
Because we would eat that. It's only convenient.
Healthy food that would be quick. It would make so much money.
Like
it's not that I feel like I need. I don't think I need
bowl.
fat and sugar all the time. It's just
bowl,
convenience.
You just drive through.
It's
whatever,
hot food
with a bit of chicken, or something nicely cooked.
You would.
But they can't mass produce. How do you mass? It'll be an individual who's like an entrepreneur, whatever, like just comes up and goes, right, there's actually a perfect place at Mark's Tay. I'm trying to remember the name of, it changed names, but it's near Wass's Fishing Tackle. And I always thought, you know what, I'd buy that.
Oh, I know where that, it's up the road from there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just before the junction.
Did you get a tissue tape?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's just before the junction, and literally you could drive round it, place your order one side, drive round it, and grab your food the other side.
Right.
So someone's got to do it, haven't they? Like, imagine like a nice English breakfast or something.
Yeah, but yeah.
Like, properly cooked, not processed.
I know in the States, burritos and stuff are a lot more Taco Bills and all that.
Well, they've all gone, haven't they? KFC were doing burritos and that's all gone.
Yeah, but I mean, doing something like that, but, like a healthier version
we
of that stuff.
We need to be doing it. That's what made me a bit angry over the lockdown, really. Like people with producing good food and stuff couldn't do that, and McDonald's and KFC and all that are left open to make millions of pounds out of it. And
I know.
It's queues going up and down the high street.
Mental,
I queued in a KFC for 3 hours in the first lockdown.
What was that?
That's brutal.
I queued in a KFC for 3 hours in the very first lockdown.
Jeez.
It was horrendous.
I'm surprised you stayed in the queue.
Well, it's one of them, because it's like you committed so far for it. Not even out of desperation. You go thinking it's going to be a 5-minute trip, and then you realise it's not. You're like, oh, look, we'll give it 10, 20 minutes. But by the time you're giving it 40 minutes, you might as well stay anyway. And you can't get out because you're boxed in.
Yeah, that's it. Once you're committed, that's it.
Once you're committed, that's it. It is absolutely game over.
And what else are you going to do during lockdown anyway?
Well, it was exactly that. That was
just queue up in KFC for 3 hours.
That was our week. That was our week out in lockdown.
So Lucy was with you as well?
Yeah, she was, mate. Yeah. So that was it. I think we had a row because we got lost on the way there, and so we sat there in silence for 3 hours.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
That was a good trip then.
It was a great trip, and I had to pay for the KFC as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was lovely. So.
Jesus, 3 hours that's.
There's a few things go wrong in lockdowns, though, don't they? Like haircuts is one.
Yes.
Few people have had to do some haircuts from home.
Well, that's what I thought. I took this seriously. I was like, yesterday I was like, right, after I drop the kids off to school, I'm going to go and get my hair cut.
Yeah.
And
I'm very grateful that you did.
Try and make myself a little
Ash,
bit
did you ever?
I know where this. Can I just clarify something? I know where this is going. All right, but carry on.
Ash, did you ever do a haircut from home in lockdown? Anything like that?
I did. Yeah, I've done several. Literally, one night I got home late from work, and my beard was long, like really long, and I was like, I've got to shave my beard off. So I got in the bath, shaved my beard off. Then I got out the bath, went to Anita and went, I think I'm going to do my hair as well. She was half asleep, so it was just whatever. I got back in the bath, number 2, straight off. She woke up in the morning just laughing at me, going, "What have you done?" But anyway, you've definitely trumped that this time round. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, Do you want to tell everyone what happened, Si?
We're live now, are we? I take it, or we're sort of live. We're talking. Yeah, well, well, because you said to me, right, I've had a haircut, right, and I do like, obviously coming on the show, we like to look smart, don't we? And I thought, do you know what I could do with a little trim up? And I've been having home haircuts for the last 12 months. So a member of my family kindly have offered to cut my hair, and they didn't get. Here we go. Thank you very much.
Oh, who took that picture? That's terrible.
Ash, I hope this podcast is really, really unpopular.
Well, yeah, that was just. I think you can thank my Uncle Robin for that part. I think he had a part to play in this, mate.
I'm going grey as well.
Yeah, I think someone else took the photo.
There's two ball patches there as well, aren't there?
So for our listeners' side, do you want to explain what's on screen?
Okay, so we are looking at a haircut gone wrong. My hair was supposed to be shaved to a number 4, and it's been it's like yours, isn't it? It's been shaved to the scalp. So. Yeah, but it's not just one patch. There's this long dangly bit down the middle.
This is what I'm saying. You do it once, but there seems to be 2 strips. So
it's whoever's inflicted that on you, mate, has gone, no, I'll definitely get it right the second time.
God.
At least it gave everyone something to talk about this morning.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing with working at Korda Developments, right? You think you can just sneak into work and record a podcast. Not too many people in the building, and then just go home. But nah.
Yeah, no, I think that got airdropped to someone in there, and
yeah, that's going to get some comments, Tobe. Thanks for that. Yeah, but at least it's a nice icebreaker for you as well, Ash.
Indeed.
Yeah,
it was good because I came in and I was like, I thought it was your natural look, and then you were like, did you see what's happened to my hair?
Ash, did you have to do that polite thing where you're like, maybe it's always like that? Yeah, I don't want to say anything.
Yeah, pretty much. I actually went, oh, has it fallen out? He was like, no.
I wish I could blame it on anapucia or something like that.
Yeah, the stress of the show.
Maybe we should ask people to you put some comments in and suggest what I should do with my hair at the moment.
Well,
I think...
There's only one
I think there's only one thing, mate. It's whether you can accept it. We might be looking very similar soon.
We could be looking very similar, Tove. Yeah. But no, we'll let the audience decide anyway. Anyway, Ash Bradbury, we're live. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Amazing to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you on the show.
Indeed, yeah.
No, I've heard a lot about your fishing. We were talking about this yesterday, actually, weren't we? The Dovey podcast.
Yes.
I mean, for someone to get Dovey's attention, it's like you've got to be doing something very, very well. So, and I know that you're well known for your zig fishing, but you've caught an awful lot of fish, different styles of fishing as well. So we got a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, nice. It's going to be good. It's amazing to get the opportunity on such a platform to sort of tell some stories.
Yeah. No, it's our pleasure. Right. Start the show. We always ask for a gift. We always ask for a nice gift, Ash. Have you got something nice for us?
I have. I've actually brought you a couple of gifts. I've spent a lot of time on this. For me, this was a really important part of the show.
I can see by the haircut and everything else.
Yeah, well, I went out, bought a barber shirt, and which I don't normally do. I'm not into labels or anything like that, but Freeport, so it's cheaper, like half price. Like,
it looks very nice. But yeah. Anyway, so you
So I spent a little bit of time thinking about it. I had several ideas, but in the end, I came up with a couple of things. And the first one is a picture of my kids.
Oh, that's lovely, that.
Yeah.
And that was just after lockdown last year.
I can see the resemblance there, Ash. Yeah.
Go on, Si. Show your camera as well, mate.
I will do.
They're 2 little cheeky size.
Oh, it's lovely, that.
But
yeah.
They love catching rudd. Both of them actually love fishing, and Nancy's just as adept as Connor is to holding fish, and she actually unhooks them now, casts out herself, and just with a little float rod. But that's how I grew up, and I think it's really important to instill that into them as well for the future. You thought that was important as soon as you had kids, that you were going to introduce them to fishing, I guess, because you're a bit of an outdoorsman as well, aren't you? I'd live outdoors if I could, like literally. This is being in an office isn't my normal thing. Although Tails Up, I am spending more time in an office there now. But it's a big part of my life.
Yeah, well, it's as we all know, it's a great pastime, and being introduced to fishing, leads to other outdoor other stuff as well, which is.
I think you've either got it. There's so many distractions in this day and age with gaming and stuff like that, and devices. I think you need that time away, and it's really important for me to go, Connor, come on, let's go. And he actually asked to go, and I'll never push him though. If he says no or yes, then great. But Nancy just loves doing whatever I do. She's like a little stick insect.
So are they pushing you now then?
Yeah, I mean, Nancy would go to the lakes every day. Connor not so. Like he'd be quite happy to go at home and chill out after his day at school. Whereas I'm like, come on, let's go to. If it's a nice evening, we'll get to the lakes or on the weekend. But it's a whole family thing, so we all love it.
It's easier as well, isn't it? I guess if the whole family are understanding, they're all on the same page.
I'm very lucky, to be fair. Yeah, I'm very lucky. But my second main, I say main gift, but this.
We got another picture.
This is quite special to me.
God, check that out.
It's Dippy from Snake Pit.
A fantastic picture.
So yeah, my mum actually gave this to me as a present. I think it was for Christmas or my birthday.
Wow.
2003. It might have been Christmas 2002. But yeah, it's
well, thanks very much for. I mean,
like she's hand done it as well. You can see like she's put it all together.
Does she know that you've just given it to Korda?
She doesn't know, but she will obviously find out now. My missus was happy to get rid of it from the bedroom, but
fed up with seeing that picture.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. Let me take that, Ash. Thank you very much for that. And we've
I'll make a nice addition to the podcast museum. That.
Yep.
Well, we've got, Ash, I don't know if you've heard, but we are in the process of getting some nice cabinets in reception, so we're going to have all these on display.
Yes, yeah.
And again, that makes such a lovely addition.
I think you said that yesterday, Simon, didn't you, that they're going to display them with the guests.
We're going to display them, label them up. So
Danny truly believes it's like a lot of carp fishing history in here. So he wants a kind of a whole place downstairs where people can go and see all these, because we've just got some brilliant gifts now, haven't we?
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
I mean, we went from wanting a studio. We wanted props in the studio to start off with, but we soon realised that these are more than props. These are sort of sentimental carp fishing artifacts, really. And I
think I like the idea. Someone said, "Should we sign the table?"
Yeah.
And I was going to bring a marker pen and actually sign underneath the table when you weren't looking.
Oh, right, okay. Not this table.
Be like being back at school, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
start carving your initials.
There's the chewing gum underneath there.
Actually, we still got that. We've got I think we got 20 odd signatures on the table.
20, 25,
yeah. And we're gonna auction that off, and that's another thing that we've been talking about framing. But getting on to Dippy. Yeah. I mean, that was, Snake Pit has got this sort of legacy of obviously the common,
the original,
Dippy, and then the other common
the
after that.
Common. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I mean, I guess story behind Dippy. Well, there's a lot happened previous to Dippy, but Dippy was a special chapter in my life because it sort of showed me that I could go on and catch other fish further afield than just 5 minutes down the road from my house. I spent many years fishing in a state lake, 97 onwards, and then I caught various famous fish that a lot of the Korda boys have caught as well. Finlay and Vanessa and Marmite, or Long Pond as it's known or was known. And then one summer I was fishing the estate lake, and I in those days, you're young, aren't you? And you just, not do anything to catch the fish, but there was a no fishing bank, and I was fishing across to it and using what you call the washing line technique. One day I've turned up and set my rods up, and the bailiffs walked straight down. Bunter, we called him, bless him. And he's walked straight down to where my rod was, and I was like, what's he doing? How does he know I'm doing that? He doesn't get up to 8 o'clock in the morning. I've put my rod out at 6 o'clock in the morning. And
shall we just say what the washing line technique is?
yeah, it's where you're effectively clipping up to a bank stick on a far margin, using a little bit of, in those days, elastic band, and putting a loop through it, and then tightening your line from the rod tip to the bank stick, and then a slack line down the edge, so the fish don't know basically you're fishing for them.
No line in the water.
No line. It is absolutely deadly. Anyway, yeah. So I've literally. He's walked straight down. He's picked the bank stick out the ground. I'm thinking, oh, what is he doing? Like, he's throwing it in the lake.
Oh.
Like, he's also seen I've got 2 tiger nuts on. He's come round.
Tigers were banned, were they?
Yeah, they were banned.
Right.
And he's like, you're banned. I was like, right, this is not a good situation to be in. But yeah,
So were you banned for the tigers, or for actually using that technique? Because I've never seen that banned on a lake before.
Double banned. Well, it's a no fishing bank. So
Right.
I was sneaking around there, as a lot of anglers did. You know, a lot of anglers would go, cast over to the bank, walk round, and just drop a bit of bait on top of their rigs. But there was a friend of mine. He actually showed me it first of all a couple of years previously, and I was like, "Cool, that's good." I had to incorporate it into my fishing, and slowly, bit by bit, I actually caught my first 40-pounder doing, using the washing line in that very swim.
Is it difficult to set up for people that don't know?
Not really. You've got to be. I've actually come up only last week. I've come up with I was using the washing line at my lakes, and so yeah, I actually use 2 elastic bands now. So one up near the top of the pole, and then one slightly further down. So I put a loop through, and then I put the loop back through the second. So it saves that loop from potentially getting wrapped around anything.
Right.
So it literally just pulls it straight out, and off the fish swims.
Right.
And you just get a drop back and wait. Well, yeah. It's just,
but better than using a line clip or something.
Yeah,
like
a line
that,
clip.
which
Just
is
you can't get the pressure on it.
Yeah.
I actually can't believe no one's come up with a product for it.
I know.
I thought of it. Obviously, it wasn't me who came up with the washing line idea, but I was like, surely someone's got to come. So there you go. There's a challenge to Dovey. But
they're quite quick to set up. So you put a bank stick in on the far bank, and elastic bands, and like you say, when you have the bite, the elastic bands pull off, and you're in.
Yeah, the line just pulls out from underneath the elastic bands, and just the line just slackens off, and you wind into the fish, and away you go.
And you've caught a lot of fish doing that.
Ian
McMillan Ting Tong was talking about doing that at Pascal's as well. Ian noticed, because there was a big build up for his trip there. And he was showing me his sticks before he went out there, and I think he mentioned it on one of our Zoom podcasts. Actually, he didn't catch more fish by using it, but he noticed that fish were getting into areas that they weren't normally getting into.
Yeah, I think if you've not got that line, fundamentally, if you've not got 1 or 2 lines going through your corner of the lake where you're fishing to, they're in there natural.
It's got to make a difference.
I was catching. Sometimes I catch 5, 6, 7 fish a day, compared to 1 or 2 that other people would catch in the same swim. Just because they didn't know the line, they come in, they're happy to feed, and before you know it, you've got this massive drop back. And
how wide across was it?
The main spot that I caught most of the fish was about 40 yards. So yeah, just it's a little flick over to the far bank,
and then rig everything up. And then
I used to use a landing net pole with the old V on it, the spreader block, and just sort of lower it into position, with a bit of PVA. So I'd literally the hook would be on the PVA, lead hanging down, and I'd literally just drop it exactly where I wanted.
Yeah.
Completely safe.
Yeah.
No harm. I took it to a magazine early 2000s, and they turned it down. They were like, we can't put this in, because they thought it was too dangerous. I was like, it's not dangerous. So what were what were their perceived sort of danger elements of that rig? I just think it hadn't been done before, and they didn't want to be the magazine to put it in first, I guess. But yes, it's one of the. It's not dangerous. If anything, it's safer, because you've not got a line going through the water where a pike can go through, or a trailer can go through and pick your rig up or whatever. And so it's just brilliant.
And what are the bites like?
Oh, it's just like. That's it.
Always a drop back, and then
and obviously if you're not right on the rod, it will pick back up and start taking line if the fish is bolting, because they normally do bolt really high. It's like when you're fishing in the edge, 3 or 2 couple of wraps out, whatever, like right in the edge, the takes you get are just absolute melters. So obviously they pick up the rig and they're hitting that resistance so quickly, like proper resistance, and it just makes them bolt. So that they, you know, I have got video footage of fish picking the rig up, you know, the tails waving in the air.
I'd love to see that.
You know, and then literally I'm videoing the spot underneath this little bush that there was, and my alarm 20 yards down the bank just go, and I'm like, oh, I would just panic and stop recording instead of thinking, oh, this would be good, like, let's record that bit as well. But yeah.
So that setup kind of works. You know, there's various reasons for why it's so effective. It's a good hooking rig as well as you know the line.
Yeah, it sets the hook really quickly. Obviously, generally, you know, I was using 3-ounce leads or whatever, so you've got that, and then because you've only got less than probably 4 or 5 yards to the rig, they don't like it.
They don't like it, no.
But so the more of the story was, sort of digressed a bit there, but so Tony's come down, obviously seen what I'm doing, but I was like, how has he found out I've done it? There's no way he's seen me. And as it turns out, when I rang my friend Little John in the evening, I said, mate, I've been banned. He went, what? He didn't know what had happened, but he got a phone call that evening or the next morning by, I think it was a chap called Matty, and he'd gone down the day before, done exactly the same as me, washing line, all the rest of it. Tony's cutting the grass, but he's put the bank stick too far up the grass. Tony's apparently run into it with the tractor and thought, what the hell was this? Picked it up, looking at it apparently, and thought, oh, walked round to him and gone, well, you're banned. And then I've come down the next morning, done exactly the same thing without knowing, and yeah, that was that. But then flip side of that.
You caught some great fish out of that lake as well, didn't you? Should we just talk about what you did catch in that lake before we move on to Snake Pit?
Yeah, in those days, obviously, you know, I was 16, 17 years old. I fished there I fished the little lake for a couple of years, and then, you know, I was watching these lads catch these fish out the main lake, dreaming of catching them really, because I was not novice, you know, I'd been an angler for 10, 15 years already at that point, but that was like the next step up. You know, when you're on a lake and then you see, you know, there's another lake and you see these people day in, day out, and they're just anglers, like we're all just anglers at the end of the day, and you can only catch the fish you fish for. But it was almost mythical to me, you know, like these were the days when I had a Shakespeare blue, you know, fishing box that I sat on with me ledger rod and float out in peg 17 on the Manor. And so I thought it was a little bit beyond me, but over time I gained confidence on the little lake, and then bit by bit I was like, right, I'm going to have a go now. And I'll never forget the first 20 pounder I caught out there. It was like I just passed my test driving, and we were supposed to be going out that night, and I was like, I'm going to catch one of these fish. Anyway, off the rod went. It was absolutely, it melted. Like I was using hemp and Activate back in, you know, those days. And I caught this fish called Patch's Mate, and it was amazing. I should have actually got a picture of that one. I didn't actually come across that yesterday, but
so was this a day only venue?
It was day only, 6 till 10, but like it was getting close to me time to go home and go out to Duke's, you know, in Chelmsford. Anyway, off the rod's gone. Played this fish and got it in the net, and I go, oh yeah, lovely. Got some lovely photos of it. I went to Duke's that night like a dog with two dicks. Literally, I'm on the balcony, pissed up, going, yeah, man, I'm the man. I've just caught a 20 pounder out of the estate lake, you know. And
what was people's responses around you?
Oh, no one else knew. They probably would have thought, what the hell is this dude doing?
Oh, I love it.
And I wasn't driving that night, but bloody hell, we nearly had a hell of an accident coming home. I remember that as well. But that was, it's like a little bit hair tingling, like the special moments that, you know, in my early days that led on. But, you know, the precursor to that was I did catch, I caught Finlay after a couple of years. I lost it once at the net. That was horrendous, 1 August. There was a fish called Big Scale. I caught that, literally, I cast that very similar area to where I used to washing line to. But I thought I'd actually cast it too close to the bank. And I was like, do you know what, I'm going to leave that for an hour. Single bleep, off it went, played this fish, got it in the net. It was like Big Scale, like the one I really wanted to catch, like spawned out at 26 pound, I think it was 26 pound 4. But I rang my dad I was like, Dad, you got to get down and take a photo for me. And he's like, I've got to go to work. I was like, I don't care. You've got to come and take a photo for me because like this is special. And he did. He took some lovely photos for me. You know, this is days when I think they were even more special days when you used to take photos on your camera, you know, proper film, and you couldn't see them straight away.
No.
And it was magical, like in Dunmo.
Or terrifying as well.
Well, yeah, to a degree, yeah, because a couple of times, obviously, you get your film developed and they're out of focus. One of my first 30-pounder was just that situation. But I used to love that feeling of finishing a film and taking it into Dunmo. Like we lived in Great Eastern and our local town, Dunmo, and there was a camera shop there. I think it was David Lawson's or something. And I used to love going in there, giving them the film, and then coming back in an hour later and picking up, you know, your photographs. And I don't know, it was such a buzz from it, like seeing them, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean it was like opening a Christmas present, birthday present.
It literally was,
and never knowing quite what you're going to get.
That's it.
How mad is it? How it's changed now? It's just instant like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you miss that feeling?
Massively, absolutely.
Because that's
like, how can you not miss that? Like it's that build up, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
it's all part of it, isn't it?
Everything's so instant now in life. You know, it literally is. If you don't, it's like even if you turn up to KFC or Mackie D's and don't get your Mackie D's in 5 minutes, you're like,
you're impatient. Where is it? Yeah.
You know, whereas that it was all part of the process of when you've caught a fish to get the photos, go and get them developed. I do miss that.
And so some of those better, some of those classic pictures that you see. I mean, I think pictures look better then as well for some reason. I don't know what.
I wish I still had that camera now because I'd use it.
Better quality pictures.
When I look back, the transition, without jumping too far ahead, transition to me getting my first digital camera. It was 3 megapixels, whatever it was.
3 megapixels.
It was 3. Yeah, I think it was 3.
I think my phone has 15 now.
And yeah, and you'll see on some of my pictures, you can tell they were the early day digital, and there were some really special fish, and I'm like, why don't I just keep my camera a little bit longer, because
massively pixelated
pictures, they're horrendous, but it's what it is. But yeah, anyway, go back to I got banned, but then the long story short of that situation was that kicked me on in my fishing sort of life, because I got banned that day, and it meant I had to go somewhere else and fish. And I genuinely believe if I hadn't have got banned that day, I'd still be fishing there now. I'd probably have a far better job and a lot more money.
Some of the fish still in there.
It's not about that to me. Some of those fish, some of the old, I think Lowell's Linear's still alive. There's I believe the long common's still alive. Well, I think I caught it last year. I didn't take a photo of it. I don't know why. But anyway, like I'd caught a lot of fish that day, and I was just like, it's a long common. I've got photos of it from 20 years ago. I don't need another photo of it. And then I got told it was dead. I was like, no, but I've just caught it. So now I've got like no proof to say I've caught that, you know. But yeah, so what happened? I got banned that day. The next morning I got up. I was like, where should I go? I had a Chelmsford angling ticket. I was like, I'm going to go over the back lake. I dabbled a little bit on there, caught a few of them previously. Turned up, they're all on top, you know, beautiful June. I think it was June. Yeah, it was June, middle of June. And I've got this, you know, floater fishing. I hadn't even set my net up. They were pack-manning mixers out in the middle, but to the right there was like what looked like a couple of better fish, and I was like, I'm going to try and catch one of them. Of course, flicked the controller out there, dragged it back. Within 2 seconds it had taken it, and I was in, and I'm like, I haven't even got a net set up. So I had to put the rod down, set the net up. Anyways, you know, a little bit of a hairy battle, but it's gone in the net, and it's Linden's, like the biggest common in there at the time, and I was like, this is mental. Like, you know, I've such a low the day before to such a high the next day, but off the back of that, it then meant I was like, right, where do I go now? So I was like, I'll go and fish for Dippy.
3 lakes in 3 days. And
eventually, I went on. You know, I didn't catch Dippy straight away. I did. I think you got some photos, Toby. I don't know if you can of Snake Pit. I think it was my second night. I caught a brace of 20-pounders out there.
Yeah. So Snake Pit, was it? I mean, back in the day, you know, the reputation of that lake as well. It was quite a hairy place to fish, and what were the snags and everything?
Yeah.
Was this a different water back when you were fishing there? I mean, it developed a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know. When you're young, you just take it in your stride, don't you? It's like, I'm going to go and fish there. I don't.
Did
really
it have
care.
a sort of a notorious reputation then?
Yeah, I mean, the first night I remember having my head torch on, and there was this kids' home to the side, and I remember them screaming at me and saying, "We're going to come and get you," and all the rest of it. And I was like, "Oh,
That's Colchester for you.
what am I doing here?" Like, but I was like, "It'll be all right," you know. And I woke up the next morning, everything was fine. But then the next night, yeah, I had that brace of 20-pounders in during the night, and that was out of. There was a snaggy area, and it was the roadside snags. I don't know whether you called it the main snags. I think there was the main snags and the little snags. I can't really, if I'm honest, I can't really remember. But I just was like, yeah, this is the patrol route. And I actually hooked a really big fish that night as well. That was the third bite I got, and I lost it. And I was like, that had to be Dippy.
Why'd you say that?
Just the bite, and it just kited. It was just kiting to my right. It wasn't fast. It wasn't a cat. I don't think it was a catfish. And it just fell off, and I was like, oh, you know. But
how many fish were in Snake Pit when you started fishing there?
If I'm honest, I have no idea.
I mean, obviously, when Damo was fishing there and stuff, there were literally like 4.
No, there was a, you know, it obviously had a stocking of fish, I would have thought. But that was, when was that? That was 2002.
So this would be the same sort of time as. I remember reading about Dippy in that book there, actually, Still Searching, in Tails' book.
Yeah.
And, sort of put it on the... So the lake had got busier then. I mean, a 40-pounder then was still is a really big fish, but, a lot more unique then.
That was my first, I went on to catch... I think it was 46-14 when I caught it. But, to go from catching 20s and a few 30s to catching that particular fish was like... Yeah, that was like... This is it now. I can go and catch big carp. And truth be told, I still didn't really know what I was doing. I was blagging it half the time. You know, learning. Still as today, you're always learning, aren't you? There's new techniques and little things you tweak here and there to make yourself a better angler.
Were the fish on Snake Pit then? I mean, they were spending a lot of time in those snaggier areas.
Yeah,
I remember Terry's book. He knew that's where he was going to catch it from.
Yeah. That's why I set up there fundamentally. Like I thought, as they cut at night, in my head, I was like, I bet they venture out, and they do, because I think it was the first or the second night I heard a fish show out in the middle of the lake that I was like, wow, that was big. And at the time there was Dippy and the common, and the common was sitting around 36 pound then, which became the second big common, down the line. Yeah, there's Paul with it. That was actually the last capture, bless it. I mean, what a bit of angling that was. I think it was his first trip down there.
How big's that there, sorry?
50-pounder, isn't it?
I was going to say, it looks massive.
I think it was 49.
Did it do 50 pounds?
I don't know.
Right.
I don't think it did 50. I think
that's a cool fish, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was big though.
Yeah. No, it's got a bit of a belly on that one, hasn't it? It's a bit of a back to front sort of shape on that.
I mean, Rob Willingham caught it on. Loads of lads caught it on our bait.
Well, Rob's got a nice story as well with that, hasn't he? Because didn't he go to St Ives and find out that the fat lady had died?
Yeah,
and then
went back.
A bit like what you said, getting banned, and then I need to go and fish somewhere else, and then goes to Snake Pit and catches it. Yeah,
not bad going.
But that was pretty special. Elliot went and photoed it and whatnot. And
what year was that capture? Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It's quite recent.
There.
Yeah,
2017.
Yeah,
2016, something like that.
Yeah, it's not been gone for very long, has it? That one?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But with Dippy, like you say, a 46-pounder back then as well was, I mean, it was rivaling the common that the lake's really well known for, and this other fish had sort of come along and.
Well, it had a bit of history, didn't it, Dippy? It'd been moved here, there, and everywhere, from rivers to, I think it was even in Suffolk Water Park for a bit, and then it turned up. There was a bit of thing like, should you go and fish for the Wandering Mirror, as it was
Dippy,
called.
the Wandering Mirror.
I was like, no, it's a big fish and it looks cool. I want that. I want to catch that. And at the time, that big fish buzz had really gripped me. Going backwards a little bit to 2000, 1999, I went to Australia, and half the time I was there, I was like, I just want to go back to England.
Why did you go over to Australia?
It was after school. I had a gap year, and we've got family and friends out there, and a couple of friends from school actually went out there, and I went out there and met up with them and stayed with our friends, and we were supposed to stay there in the first place in Sydney. We were supposed to stay literally a couple of days, and we ended up staying a month.
Like you do in Australia.
You do.
You've got quite a famous relation out there as well, haven't you?
Well, you could say so, yeah. John Farnham.
Toby,
So,
do you?
yeah.
I don't expect you to know who John Farnham
You
is.
put me on the spot now.
No, but it's fine, because when Adrian Smith was on here, he didn't know who Iron Maiden were. But John Farnham he's well known for "You're the Voice," the song "You're the
Yes,
Voice"
indeed,
back in the 80s, which is probably one of the most well-known hits
A
of the 80s.
little bit before my time. Yeah.
I hope you would know the song.
Would I?
We're all someone's daughter. Yeah,
I love it. Finally, Ash, you won't realise this, but that's the first time Simon's sung on the podcast after mentioning it.
Yeah.
But
You've just got to learn to cut hair now, haven't it?
That's the next thing.
Toby, I think you got a couple of pictures there. It should be
Let's have a look.
be linked. John Farnham.
I didn't realise that, because I always thought he was American, actually.
Yeah,
And,
he was English.
So obviously,
Born in England. The little story behind that is my mum and dad were due to move to Australia, and they fell pregnant with Brian, which is, as you can see on the right hand side, the one with the tash, and instead of
this picture we got so John Farnham is the guy in the middle with the long hair.
John Farnham, yeah, my dad to the right and my mum in front, and then Gina, my mum's sister, Daryl, Les, bless him, he passed away a couple of weeks ago.
You all look a bit similar, actually. I mean, obviously you are related, so
I'm not the postman's anyway.
at least we can confirm that anyway, Ash, can't we?
But that was. I think there's another picture of us after a concert or something.
Toby, you will know who this guy is when you hear the song. I can guarantee you will know the song.
Well, music's massive for me as well.
Yeah,
like it's like a picture. A picture has the ability to transport you back to an era, and music for me is exactly the same. If I'm at work and I need to be lifted a little bit, I'll just put my old music on.
So what are you listening to?
Oh, you don't even want to know.
So when that song was out in the charts at that time, were you going, "Wow, that's a great song"? But that's my second cousin.
No, I was too young to really understand.
Right.
I was like 8, 9 years. Like there I am. Look how young I am there. That's nearly as bad as haircut as yours. That's literally a bowl put around my head.
So the picture we're looking at there, nearly as bad as mine.
Not quite, though.
Yeah, it's not quite as bad. But that looks like Jason Priestley, the guy from Beverly Hills 90210.
I don't know. It might be. I know it was someone famous.
Oh, well, that's who it is then.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's an actor.
Yeah.
We'll probably get some comments.
Well,
no, he's not an actor.
he's
He's
not.
a flipping dancer.
No, I reckon you've done well there then.
Yeah.
But they were great times. Like, I don't know. It was just different back then, wasn't it?
It was a good era for music.
That whole era.
Yeah.
Like, for everything, life in general. We're very, very lucky to have, us that grew up from the 80s or 70s that went through that 90s period was special.
I'm going to sound very naive here. What year was was Elton John big? I've just watched Rocket Man, so it's my latest obsession.
Oh, that's
at the moment.
1970s.
Was that the 70s?
70s and 80s,
Yeah.
I've just was it? Yeah, I saw. I think you told me to go and watch Rocket Man.
Yeah,
There's a story
Rocket
behind that actually.
It's a great
Like
film.
my dad, we used to go fishing on a weekend with my dad, and he'd have days of tape players. Put the tape in.
Most some of our audience might not even know what that is.
Oh mate, and we'd have Sacrifice on literally like repeat. I absolutely love, like, that's one of the songs on my old school, like that. And I guess I'm influenced by what my dad listened to at that.
You remember the
that
video
time.
with the hat and everything, don't you, as well? Yeah.
It's mad, but very, very.
So when you went out to Australia, so you would stay with him?
So yeah, we stayed in Sydney, but he's John and his family lived in Melbourne, just outside Melbourne, and so I stayed in Sydney for a month, and then headed off down to Melbourne. I stayed there in the end another month, and while I was there, I did a bit of carp fishing.
So carp fishing in Australia, as we've talked about, actually, is not really the same as it is in the UK.
No, unfortunately, at the time, I'm not sure if it's still the same, but you weren't allowed to put them back. I might have slipped a few back, but ultimately you had to do what was the done thing.
I mean, they just multiply, don't they? They're just huge shoals of them out there, aren't
Loads, just generally wild strain carp, that long and thin. But mate, if you had some of our fish over there now, my God, they grow big. They're super rich waters. I was only fishing rivers as a rule. I did get told about a lake that had a 40-pound mirror in it, but I never got to fish it, unfortunately. And again, I was a little bit young. I flew over there with my 2 rods and reels and thought, I'm going to go and catch. I mean, how crazy is that? Like going to Australia and I just wanted to catch carp, But I mean, I was very blessed. I did. The friends we stayed in Sydney. Don McAllister. He was an ex-footballer actually. Played for Tottenham in the 70s, early 80s, and he had his own boat. So we'd go out Sydney Harbour and catch tuna and kingfish and.
That's cool. I'd love to catch tuna.
Bonito tuna. We had one day where they were just all around the boat, and every time I cast my rig in, like little silver spinners, just like stripping line off your eyes. Again, we hooked one thing. We were actually trolling one day, and one of the rods, what's that? Wicked Tuna.
I love that program.
Yeah,
one of my favourite programs.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
But this is before Wicked. This is 20 years before Wicked Tuna. One of these rods is just hooped over, and it was like,
it's
wow.
the noise they make, the cranking as well as it goes down.
I'm playing this fish.
Well, you think a carp bite's good,
Yeah,
but,
this is different league. Proper. I'd actually love to go and catch a big tuna. I'd make sure it went back, because I can't stand these pictures of these 500-pound tuna that are dead, but hung up by their tail. But it is what it is. But yeah, I was playing this fish and I'm thinking, oh my God, if I land this, what is it going to be? The bloody hook fell out and I was devastated. I can still remember to this day the fish. It's like when you lose a big carp and you're like, that hurts.
Yeah.
Gutted. But also I never know. It's a bit like the John Wilson one where he played, as I was growing up, obviously John Wilson was massive on TV, and I think I'm not sure if he was marlin fishing or anything, but he hooked this fish that he played for 4 hours or something ridiculous, and it was coming. I remember him going, "It's coming up," and then the line went, and you're like, "Yeah, that's horrific, isn't it?"
But it's part of going fishing, isn't it? It's always those ones that we don't land.
And they stick with you, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
It's a feeling I've only ever just started to come to realise, and it's not fun losing fish, because you always picture it as a big one as well, don't you?
Yeah, it's because you don't know what it is, isn't it? But yeah, it's worse when you see a big fish and then it falls.
I know. Dean Fletcher was saying that Regan reckons Pete Regan's lost more big uns than he's actually caught. Yeah. But I can't say I really experienced that. I've lost a few fish, but not necessarily ones that.
Most lakes I've gone to, I've lost a fish where I'm like, what was that? Was that the one or?
But doing the sort of fishing you're doing out in Australia, you're anything can live in the ocean, can't it? And
That's it.
You just don't know what you're hooking, do you?
I'd love to have gone out. Like we did actually go quite far out one day to try and catch a big shark. We failed, but I'd love to do that as well. I'd love to catch. No, I'd love to swim with a great white, probably rather than catch one now.
Actually, the guy that we had on the podcast previously, he's been out with great whites, and we didn't actually talk about it on the show. But
I don't know if I could do it.
I'd love it. I mean, there's a girl that swims with them.
Yeah,
and
I've seen
literally
that.
Free dives with them.
She was swimming with that real big one. What was the name of that?
It does have
that 20-footer, wasn't it? Attractive going. It was like
a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I'd love to see a great white shark. Crikey, just it's the most wild animal on the planet, isn't it?
Yeah, it again from childhood, like Jaws, isn't it?
But they can't keep them in captivity.
No,
I think the longest. Might be wrong on this, but I think the longest they've kept a great white in captivity for is like 45 days, around that sort of period.
No, right, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew they couldn't be kept.
There might be some marine biologists that listen to this show that go, that's absolutely. But no, they're so wild, they can't keep them in captivity. I think they get so stressed.
I've just given it a Google.
Oh, thanks, Tobe.
That's right, just to check.
But they're very, very stressful animals. They need to be...
198 days.
Okay.
Yeah, which isn't a long time. The longest great white has been kept in captivity for 198 days at Monterey Bay Aquarium.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like orcas, isn't it? They don't, their dorsal fin flaps over, and you just know they're not happy. Don't you? So
You seen blackfin?
I haven't. No.
Oh, blackfin, crikey. That's yeah.
Right.
You realise how close they are to us in their behaviours and the way
dolphins,
that,
isn't it?
yeah,
Like,
dolphins
my
as
God.
well. Those blackfins,
Incredible
when they're being chased down the rivers, you need to watch it, but they were chasing these orcas, and they split the adults went one way, and then the mother took the young the other way to try and divert.
Yeah.
They know and when they're kept in captivity, and they're almost like crying when they're in captivity. They're calling for their mates. It's like, you should watch it. Yeah.
What's that on?
That's
is
on
that
Netflix.
It's Netflix.
Blackfin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been out for a few years.
It's like Seaspiracy and all that.
Well, it's
isn't
about
it?
it's about SeaWorld and
Right.
keeping those things in SeaWorld.
I'd really struggle to watch something like that, I think.
It's pretty it's pretty hard hitting, but you just realise how close those animals are to us, and you have a different perspective on it's all great going to these places and seeing these animals in captivity, but they really should be in the wild.
Well, it's like 20 years ago I wanted to catch a great white. Now I just love to swim with it and see one.
Yeah.
No, there were special times in Australia, that's for sure.
I didn't realise because you said you went to Sparshalt. So many people. I mean, Dovey had a week at Sparshalt.
Did he? I lasted a little bit longer than him then.
Yeah, how long were you there for?
About a year and a half.
Yeah.
So
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. To be fair, I loved the social side of it. Because again, the carp angling side. Yeah, within a few weeks, there was a little group of us that were obviously carp anglers, and we'd made mates, and it was like, we started fishing here, there. I got a ticket for Roach Pit, and we fished Summerley. And Summerley was quite a nice story because
I fished there. Lovely lake.
Have you? Yeah, it's like beautiful lake. And passion for angling. Obviously, he catches Fat Lady out of that secret lake, but it wasn't a secret lake. It was actually Summerley. And at the time, I was like, "You're joking? That's just ruined that program for me." But then actually, when you went and stood in the swim, then that meant something, But yeah, so the Sparshalt days were really good. Caught my first 30-pounder out of Roach Pit while I was there. Nightlife was good. Drank a bit too much. In those days, it was what it was. But yeah,
but I mean, because you are a like a real outdoorsman and stuff. But did you have a kind of a vision of wanting to seriously work in fisheries, or was it just talking to other people? A lot of carp anglers go there with the idea that they just want to do something because it's similar to their working, because it's similar to their hobby.
I think fundamentally, I'm not an academic. I was at school. I was privileged to be public schooled. I did A levels. I got my A level. I got 2 A levels, and I think I failed 1. But I got enough grade to go to Sparshalt and do a HND course. But I was not pushed into it. It was the thing to do, and I kind of wish I'd known what I know now, because.
What the thing to do within fishing?
Well, not really within fishing, just in life. I think, as a lad with dyslexia, I couldn't read and write at 9-10 years old, and I was very lucky that I had some really good help from some good people that helped me get better. And if I hadn't had that, I probably would have dropped out at school at 14, 15.
I said to you, I had the same problem at school.
Yeah, and.
It's you need some understanding, supportive people around you, don't you, to get you through that?
Yeah.
You done well to get your A levels though.
I had a lot of help. There's no, I'd never got it without that help. We had we've got extra time in exams and stuff like that. But I love sport. I love my cricket, football, rugby, hockey, whatever sport it was. If there was a ball involved, I'd be playing it. And
who do you support, Ash?
Don't.
Go on.
Tottenham.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to have to end the show here.
Yeah,
it's
Thanks for
brutal.
coming on the show,
Thanks
Ash.
for coming.
It
Well,
is brutal.
I'll enjoy just jumping over you one place as we finish above you again in the season.
Mate, I don't. Do you know what? I have not watched football since VAR has come in.
It seems to be.
It's ruined it for me.
Tommy on the Guru show was very animated about his views on VAR.
Yeah, we want the right decision to be made, but Jesus Christ, when there's like a toe, and you can't tell that ball was kicked at that exact moment, and yeah, but anyway, enough about football. I still love anything England play and stuff like that, but even that's lost a bit of the buzz these days, because that era of magical players are not playing, and these prima donnas now that like thrown. So I don't.
Well, I think lockdown has made a difference as well. I mean, I didn't realise how much I enjoyed, sports like football. Not just because of the game itself, but because of the audience participation. Huge. And, I can't even... I can't sit down and watch a football match on the telly at the moment. I haven't watched a game really over lockdown. And there was a period where there were more games. Seemed like there were more games. It's like the World Cup, wasn't it, at one point?
Yeah, and it's that voiceover thing of the crowd, but it's not quite in sync with as it's happening.
That's awful.
You feel like it's like when you're watching a TV program and the sound is out of sync with their lips, and like, there's like a near miss or a goal, and it's like it takes another 2 seconds for the crowd to erupt. Really? Am I watching a game here, or is this a computer game almost?
Well, what Bobby said as well, didn't he? Bobby Zamora, when he came on, I think I said to him, what would it feel like playing with an empty stadium? Because you think some players might respond better to that, but I mean they're professionals, so they're used to that. But he said it's just not the same.
No, but other sports like Ronnie O'Sullivan in snooker, that lockdown championship, Worlds, he won it because there was no crowd there. I know I think there was a few thousand people at the final, but he could just get down and concentrate and not be worried about who's watching him, what he's doing. If he makes a cock up, it doesn't matter because no one's seen it in his eyes, even though the camera's on it. So I think different people react differently to it, but football just it's soulless, isn't it?
It needs a crowd, doesn't it? Hopefully not far away. But Spa Shot, so you got through for a year and a half, and then decided it just wasn't for you then?
It was a period in my life where my mum and dad were going through, the separation and stuff, and I just missed home. I wasn't in the right frame of mind, like fundamentally I wish I'd left school and gone and done something manual, like learnt to be a bricklayer or electrician, or like I was. It's funny, Simon Scott's podcast, when he said like dyslexics gravitate towards the outdoors, like that just hit the nail on the head for me, and I guess, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't change anything, but Spa Shot, it just wasn't the right time for me. Maybe now would be a better time for me, where I have the ability to sit down and concentrate and learn, but at that time in my life, with everything that was going on at home, my brother was 8 years younger than me, and I just felt like I sort of needed to be closer to home, more, on a more regular basis, and I made the decision to leave, but maybe come back the following year. But in that time, I'd left, got a job at a shooting ground because I loved my shooting, clay shooting, pheasant, and pigeon shooting, whatnot. And I got my job there, and I was loving doing that 3-4 days a week, and then it gave me 4 days a week to fish if I wanted to,
Was that always a priority, just to get as much fishing time as you could then?
I think it's like most anglers, isn't it? You work your life around wanting to go fishing, and I was fortunate, again, privileged position, that I could do that. I could earn a couple $100 a week and be happy, really.
Did you meet some influential people around that period as well, that fishing then?
Everywhere you go, though, there's always a few anglers on each. I've got mates for life from that era that we may not see each other very often, but when we do, it's like we saw each other yesterday. It's like schoolmates, isn't it? So it was a special time of my life, that's for sure, and sort of the stepping stone to move forward.
So at that time, you didn't have a girlfriend or a family or anything like that, and it was just get as much fishing time in as you possibly could.
Yeah, I mean, we used to go out on the weekends, schoolmates still then, but fundamentally I just wanted to go.
And where were you fishing?
So I left. That was when I actually went to fish for Dippy. When I was working at the shooting ground, I got in trouble that week because I booked it off, but the boss didn't know I'd booked it off. And I literally got a phone call going, "Where are you?" I was like, "Oh, I'm fishing." "Well, you should be working." I was like, "Well, I did tell you." Well, I told someone, I think.
Left a note somewhere.
Yeah, I did. I left a note, and I don't think that note ever might have got put in the bin. But yeah, no, I worked there for the best part of a couple of years, and loved every minute of it. But that enabled me to do, where was I fishing for? Obviously Little Eastern, then a little bit on Braxted, and then obviously went on to catch Dippy, and then I think another year down the line I'd saved it. What I wanted to do fundamentally was fish, so I saved some money. I saved about £1,000. I thought, right, I'm going to have a year off and fish.
Right.
Like, imagine that, £1,000 and I could fish.
Yeah, that'd last you a few weeks, wouldn't it?
Literally, all I had to worry about was paying for my petrol, my food for the week. But because I caught those fish, I'd started to get noticed a little bit, and got a couple of sponsorships. Korda were sponsoring me, a few of the other companies, Chubb was sponsoring me, and then and that enabled me. I started working at Chubb, doing a day here. When they had deliveries, I'd go in and help them drive their, because they had two different places.
Sorry, who was the guy that you met from Chubb?
Oh yeah, so I met Mark Fagg while I was actually on the shooting ground, and I showed him a picture of a fish, and he took that back, and I think he showed Kevin Benham. Before I knew it, I had a Chubb deal, and it was, it started off as, I got trade discount, and then I got free gear, and then they started paying me a couple of years down the line, and it enabled me to carry on doing a bit of fishing, a little bit of work. I worked for my dad, and doing his house up and stuff, and just for a few years. And
I mean, you're quite well known within the industry for you're quite an inventive character. You've come up with quite a few tackle designs and worked for different tackle companies and stuff. So or been a consultant sponsored angler for different companies. Have you always been good at kind of just coming up with original ideas that could have commercial benefits?
I mean, when you're young, you don't really have an idea of what you're doing, do you? But I loved design and technology at school. That's one thing I still love it now. Like, I love designing, whether it be products, coming up with ideas for products, or even branding products. A few years ago, a friend of mine, he gave me a crash course in InDesign in one day, and I rebranded the whole of Tails Up off the back of that one day's crash course, when I literally watched him do our catalogue, and then I just ran with it.
Right.
That's quite impressive, because that's not a straightforward piece of software in design. But
YouTube's an amazing thing.
Yeah,
if there's something you want to learn, like.
Do you find with the dyslexia thing, it's easier to watch something rather than have to read?
I have to watch it, but I also have to do it. And if I don't do it, last year I spent quite a bit of time watching videos on solar power and learning, because we built a stock pond at the lakes, and I wanted to put aeration in and pump water from the main lake through the stock pond, and I really struggled to absorb it until I was actually doing it. And I think that's part of my dyslexia. I have to do it, and I also have to write it down, because if I do something now and then go back to do it in 6 months' time, I ain't got a clue what I'm doing. I've got to start all over again. It's mad. But yeah, I love designing products, and
so tell us, some designs that you've come up with that other anglers might be using and taking for granted now.
Obviously the Zig float. That was probably one of the main things. The Triple S rod sleeve for Chubb back in the day. There was loads of little things for Chubb. Their floats for float fishing.
Did they realise when they got to know you that you were potentially really good at that sort of stuff, or were you just coming to them with ideas?
I was just coming to them with ideas.
Yeah.
I've taken a few things to Korda over the years. Floss caps. The original bed chair, where the device, the mechanism, flipped underneath. I can't remember,
flatliner.
Yeah. That I remember I was in the office and I just said, "Well, imagine you could flip that round." Next thing you know, they've produced one, and Nashi weren't very happy about that.
Right.
Apparently, they beat him to the patent by a couple of weeks or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what he told me anyway.
So did they get? I mean, did you get anything out of that, or was it just
Fox? Fox. I got because of the zig float. I got a little bit of money.
Not the bed share though.
No, I got nothing for anything else. But Dovey's quite a hard person to haggle with as well. So but that's business, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's got to be marketable, and you've got to make some money from it. So.
I mean, are you sat there intentionally thinking, right, I need to, or does it always come from, a necessity to want something for your own fishing?
Yeah, to make something better, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's in it. All walks of life, isn't it? You want to make your life easier, isn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so just going back to Snake Pit then, I mean, after catching a 46-pound fish from there, it's like, is that when you've become a big fish angler and you're looking for similar challenges after that?
Well, it was the first lake that I'd actually travelled to. Obviously, I caught a 30-pounder out of Roach Pit, which is 2.5 hour drive away, but a really big fish, Dippy being... At the time, there weren't many fish like that around.
I've actually got that picture. Is that the one?
Yeah, that's out of Roach Pit. That was 32 pound.
So even you heard about Dippy then, Tobe, and
yeah, I'd heard
the audience know that you're not too much of a carp angler.
No, but I just remember we were saying before we recorded. My dad used to tell me about Dippy when I was like 5-6 years old, and I used to think it was like this mythical creature. So it's really funny for me to see the pictures of it.
Well, I actually dragged. We were looking at the picture earlier of Paul with the common. I dragged my boy with me that day to go and see it, and he was buzzing, absolutely buzzing.
At that age, it's quite fascinating to see an animal like that big, because when you're 5, 6, 7 years old, they're about the same size you are.
They seem like it, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, like if I'd seen a 49-pounder at that age, I don't know.
So back in 2002 then, so where would you kind of get your information, your inspiration for finding new venues?
Well, obviously we were in the magazine era big time then, weren't we? Like it was really kicking off then. Carp Talk was going into colour. Carp Talk would have been my main source of inspiration, because you'd nip into the local news agents, it'd be there, and I think I'd seen obviously Dippy in the papers quite a bit, various magazines, and I saw it there and I wanted to go and catch, go and have a go for it. And then off the back of that, obviously, eventually the next year I went on to Tolpits. I'd met a friend when fishing for Dippy, Jim Matthews, and we'd talked about it and stuff. We actually went to Frogmore. He went on and caught the Frogmore leather pretty quick, and I just progressed on to Tolpits. And
why Tolpits for you then? Because I mean, so you really are travelling now, aren't you?
That toll again. It was Carp Talk. It was the common going in Carp Talk, like the toll common, just again like a mythical creature that apparently was really hard to catch. And I was like, and Plodder. Well, Plodder speaks for itself. I think you got a picture of Plodder, Tobe. It's just, yeah.
So had you read the book?
What an animal!
Yeah,
that made a few people happy, didn't it?
I'm very lucky to have caught that.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually caught it 3 times that first year.
3 times.
Yeah. Well,
that's just being greedy.
There was,
yeah, come on.
There was a few anglers on there, like when they found out I'd had it a 3rd time. And they were.
Had you read the Terry Hearn book and stuff before that?
I'd read, but I'm not a great reader, if I'm honest. I look at pictures. Yeah. That's why I love. That's why I came here armed with hundreds of pictures for you, because it's nice telling a story with a picture.
How big's that there, Ash?
I think it was 40. I think it was £40.14.
It got up to upper 40s, didn't it?
Yeah, it got really big.
Yeah. So was that the first capture?
That was the first capture. Yeah. That little story behind that was I turned up at the lake. There was a swim called the Snags, Snags 1 and Snags 2, one on the railway bank, and who became a friend. First time I met him, Dave Magalhaes. He was in both the swims.
Yeah.
He had gear in both. I've turned up and I'm like, well, what swim are you fishing in then, mate? And I bet he was like, who's this? And he went, oh, I'll go in. I think it was Little Snags, or Little Snags or something. And so he went in there, and I went in the railway side.
Was he purposely fishing 2 swims then? Or
Well, he was baiting both swims and then sort of fishing a rod in there, then winding that one in, going into the other one, like doing a few hours on each. I think he was using prawns on long hairs and short rigs. It's like,
my friend caught him out of Tolpits on prawns, actually.
Well, maybe that's where he got it from. I don't know. But I was like, I'm just going to feed him like a little bit of parkle and boilie, and I'm gonna, look at it. That's a boilie fish, isn't it? Its mouth was massive.
Yeah.
I was using Essential B5 at the time. Great bait that was.
And as a carp water, Ash, did you know exactly the type of fishing that you were going to expect on there?
Again, being young, you just take it all in stride, and you're learning every day. You know, I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. I mean, I caught fish out the edge. You know, it was known. You know, when you read the articles and stuff, it was all, you know, people talking about that they live in the edge. You know, there was, I think Shelley had done a few pieces and talked about, you know, literally catching them from underneath your feet, and it was true to an extent. But Plodder, I actually caught that down the snags that a couple of days later after watching it, feeding it. What I do is actually bait the spot and not have my rigs in for the main part of the day, so the fish would come in, see no line, because they'd be looking for your lines. They're not stupid. I'd be double back-leaded, and, you know, and my back-lead thing came from the estate lake, where it was all about keeping your lines out the way, and not only for the fish not seeing your lines, but if you got a bite, you wouldn't wipe the next person out and things like that. But so you know,
that experience must have been really useful going on to Tolpits.
Yeah, I mean, small waters are probably some of the trickiest waters you'll fish. I'm not a particular fan of fishing 100-acre lakes. It's not what I do. My time that I get these days doesn't work with that. You know, I'd need 3 days a week to fish them sort of venues to have
What, you
any
prefer
sort of chance.
to be able to observe fish?
Yeah, I love fishing small waters where I can turn up within a few hours, know exactly where I need to fish, you know, given that you can get in the areas that you need to get to, and then it's you against the carp, isn't it? And trying to outwit them.
And Tolpits is only a few acres, isn't it?
Tolpits was 3-4 acres.
Yeah, so you would find during the day, a bit like the car park lake, what Jamie was saying about the car park, where the fish you would know where the fish were like all the time. Was it similar that?
Yeah, exactly. You'd observe them in the snags. They'd either be in one set of snags, or they'd be in another corner, or they'd be up the far end, and then travelling between the two. And on Toll, there was actually a little sunken island with one little stick that would stick up when the water went down. And I sort of got my eye on that for the autumn, really. But yeah, the Plodder, the first capture, was out at the edge down the snags. Again, fed it all day, dropped the rig on, within half an hour got the bite, and Plodder was in the net within literally 2 minutes. Didn't hardly fight.
So you're feeding it with just a one-off feeding, or are you just trickling bait into those?
Yeah, just going up to the spot and feeding it regularly.
Right.
Little and often.
Right.
You know, so they'd have a feed, go out, you'd put a bit more bait in, they could have another feed, go out and a bit more.
So it's almost
on.
like you're sort of hand feeding them a little bit.
Yeah, just conditioning them to. Yeah. And then you put the rig in, and they're not fearing anything, and yeah.
And you can do that. I was talking to Matt Pettit actually a couple of days ago. He was talking, Rob Farrant, very, very, very good angler by all accounts, and Matt was saying the reason why he was so successful, his style of fishing is he's feeding multiple spots at the same time.
Yeah, I love doing that.
Yeah, he's got different spots going on, and he might catch from a certain part of the lake. And when he turns up the following week, the anglers are all fishing in the area and he's fishing the opposite area, because he's also got multiple other areas going. And Matt was saying that you'll speak to him and he'll say he will be baiting a spot, but he'll say it's not quite ready yet. It's not quite ready. So it's a gradual process that he seemed to be doing. I mean, but for you it was a little bit more spontaneous than that.
Yeah, it was being in the moment.
Yeah.
Literally finding where they were and then working out how to catch them from there. I mean, I was actually, last few years fishing non-publicity water, I'd be baiting multiple spots in the edge and, like you say, wait for them to be ready, or wait to see the fish really feeding on them before you actually went and fished for them. But Toll was very much in the moment. If they were in that set of snags or that particular areas around the lake, you'd then go and set up and try and work a way of catching them. But that first time I caught it from the left, then I caught it a month later from a set of lily pads. I think I put a picture of the lily pads up on there. Literally like not even 10 yards, and like right in the edge. Found it. Oh, that's the common spot. That one. There's a bright. I think you got a picture of a bright set of pink lily pads.
And all these fish were pretty much at that time coming out the margins for
That's
you
the
as
one.
well.
Yeah.
Were coming out the margins for you as well, then, Ash.
They were swimming around the margins all the time. Look at it. It's a tiny little pond.
Yeah.
But beautiful.
Yeah.
Really tricky. Really like some really good anglers were on there. Done a lot of time.
So that's what I was going to get into a little bit with you. So I mean, you got good anglers fishing there. I mean, they all doing pretty much the same thing as you then. Baiting spots and checking spots.
I didn't really. There was a couple of anglers on there that I got pally with and stuff, but I didn't really watch what other people were doing. I was just worried about what I was doing and trying to maximise. Like Dave, who I got to know quite well, we had a bit like Passion for Angling days where we'd have little rud matches and like he'd be one up on me, about to win, and I'd shake his rud off before he got it in and stuff like that. We had a good bit of banter. We'd have throwing stick fights from one side of the lake to the other. But these were happy-go-lucky days, It was all just good, friendly fun, really. But the other anglers, you'd have your people there that would be there 3 days, not get out their bivvy almost. But
were you spending a lot of time up there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The first. What did I do? I fished it for a year and a half, I think, and I did over 100 nights in that time. I did a lot of them in the winter, to be fair. But yeah, there were anglers like James. Well, the first time I turned up, I got the ticket and we turned up for the draw, and a couple of people got out of the car. So one of these lads went to school with, and he was a couple of years younger than me, I think, James Wilsmer, and he come out and got the snag swim in the draw, and I was like, you bastard. I had to sit next to him and do his photos for the next 5 days. I think I did 7 days that trip. Like I had a week before I went to France. I was like, I stayed 5. I might as well stay a couple more, literally. But those days you could do what you want. I had no commitments really. It was only a matter of how much money I had and how much food I had. And you could make the make the most of it, but have some good fun as well at the same time. Whereas today, and everything's so different, it's so stretched. Your time on the bank is so valuable. And who was talking about? I'm not sure if it was on the podcast the other day. Someone was talking about if they're going to travel 250 miles to a lake, they don't want to get there and then go and get pissed in the pub if they've only got 3 days or something, because you lose vital time and it's money now as well to get there, isn't it, and stuff. But yeah, the toll days were really, really, if I could relive that time again, I'd quite happily do it. But yeah, I caught Plodder the first time, second time quite quick, and then in the autumn I was baiting an open water spot off the back of the island from, I think it was called the Oaks, and I got this bite one night. I was actually there with Little John and Dave Monk, and we'd been playing cards all evening, and literally just as we were about to wrap up, right hand rod's pulled up tight, single bleep. I was like, that's a bite. And an hour later I'm still playing this fish, and it's literally on the shelf, rod hooped over like it was bloody catfish, and eventually it pops up and it was Plodder. And literally it took me 2 minutes to land the first time, about 10 minutes the second time, and then an hour in the third time. But what, it's one of them battles that like every time I got it up it just went straight back down. I was like, what? And I was convinced I had the common or Leicester's or whatever. But yeah, Plodder popped up. It was actually the first 40 that John had seen, so it was quite special anyway. But yeah,
this is Little John.
Yeah, Little John. Yeah, he's
Yateley angler.
No, this is John.
Oh no,
from
Collinbrook.
No, from
right. Okay.
the estate.
So I just go for every lake in the country.
I'll have to. I think I did put a picture up. I think there's a brace shot of him and me at the estate lake. He's bless him, he's disabled, but he fishes on a skateboard, so his nickname's Skateboard John. Right. And there he is, fucking legend he is.
Oh, nice.
Not very good photo, unfortunately, but
it's a nice fish there that we're looking at. He's got a common, and
that was a good evening.
He looks like he's about to kiss your mirror there as well, Ash.
He's a legend, absolute legend, that boy. But
So,
you know,
I mean, Tolpits, is that your favourite period of carp fishing then?
I don't know.
I think
The next era is quite cool as well. Like the next few years were pretty good.
Right.
But in terms of adventure, Toll was pretty up there, definitely. Because it's that whole process of travelling to a lake. I love even travelling here to do this today. And I only have a 15-minute journey to work now, and that soon goes. Whereas in the old days, I had an hour journey to work, and you get in this mindset. You think about everything you had to do for the day in what order. So I turn up and I know exactly what I'm doing. And the same thing when I'm fishing a lake that's an hour journey away. You get in the zone, and you know you've looked at what the weather's doing previous to you even setting off, and time of year. Obviously, you learn a lake each year, don't you? You know, if you're on a lake the first year, it's all new and you're kind of not really sure what's going on. But by the second year, like a 3-year process generally on most lakes with the time I get, by the second and third year it's carnage, because you've now learned. But I love that feeling of travelling to a lake and getting in the zone before you get there, and yeah, it
doesn't feel like you've got, once you're actually there and you're doing it, you don't seem to have that sort of freedom to be able to think as clearly.
No, but that hour before you do.
Yeah, it's like you're like meditating, aren't
yeah,
you? Fishing meditation.
Yeah, it is strange, but I used to love that buzz.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah.
So you caught Plodder 3 times in there. So you did catch you caught the long common.
Yeah, the common, the big common, the toll common. I caught that the second spring.
Yeah.
That was look at it. Yeah.
They look really old fish, don't they? As well, typical Colne Valley fish, actually.
Yeah, they look at the size of its pecs.
Yeah.
I mean, and its tail. I mean, the before that capture, I was actually fishing. I can't remember the name of the swim. A particular swim anyway, and it was a nice day. And they were all on top, swimming up and down the middle. And how I used to catch them on toll, on floaters, was literally I'd draw a hook bait in front of their head as they're swimming. I wouldn't worry about getting them feeding half the time. It would just be single hook bait fishing, but making sure I get that in their path as they're swimming along. Anyway, I'm floating, doing a little bit of float fishing, and mate Jake, he's come up to me and going, oh, can I chuck one out in your swim? I was like, yeah, a bit happy. Again, happy-go-lucky. You know, it's like, yeah, no problem. Anyway, this thing starts swimming up down the middle of the lake, and it's refused my mixer. And I've gone to him, you need to move your mixer because I'm not having you catching it out of my swim. And he'd caught it the autumn before. I've got some magical photos of it actually for him. And anyway, he didn't. And you know what happened. He's taken this mixer and massive fight. And I knew what it was the moment he hooked it. It's gone in the net. Oh, I won't mind saying I absolutely sulked like a spoiled kid. I just sat at the back of the swim, didn't even look at it, didn't get involved with the capture, nothing. And don't get me wrong, I didn't shout and scream or anything like that. I just sat there, just sulking, just going,
more gutted,
feeling absolutely gutted, thinking what could have been. Right, I think he had it £40 something. But then 2 weeks later, I got my own back because I saw it, that picture you put up earlier underneath the trees. I turned up and there's a bungalow on one bank. As you come in the gate, straight down bungalow with like some lily pads in front of it. And it was always clean there. So again, Tolpits, at night they come in and feed in the edge. People put bait there and stuff. And yeah, I mean, look, that kind of doesn't do it justice because this was on.
Is it quite, looking at the picture there? Is it quite shallow around those pads?
Very shallow,
as well?
Yeah, very shallow. So I think you can even see the fish in the shot.
Yeah,
top
I think
right hand side.
Right hand side of the lily, just behind those two reed stems on those reed stems.
That's
Yeah,
it.
just there, Tobe. Yeah,
That's where it was sitting.
that was the common there, was it?
That was the common.
Yeah.
And I mean that photo was taken on. What were you saying about these digital cameras?
Yeah.
The 3 megapixel camera.
Yeah.
You know, even your phones have got better than that now. So it does. The picture kind of doesn't do it justice. But yeah, anyway, I turned up, saw it there. I was like, oh, the bungalow swim was free. I was like, how am I going to catch this? Right, I know, washing line. So I put my rod to the left here, put a bank stick in, sat there feeding it for, I don't know, good few hours. And then I was like, right, I'm going to put a rig in. And then it fed on one particular spot. literally it would circle round, drop down. I only had a mouthful, literally a mouthful. That was it. And it'd go away, sit under the pads, come back again.
Why would that spot, do you think, Ash? Any reason?
No idea. Just that was the spot it was happy to feed on. So anyway, when it did eventually, I stood there for 2 hours with the rig waiting for it to disappear enough. Literally just went to the other side of the pads and I was like, right, lowered it in. I'll never forget it. Coming back in, straight away it knew. It knew something was up. Like its fins started quivering, like almost like electrifying. And we actually saw it at the lakes the other day.
We did.
And that reminded me of that, and that's why I wanted to tell this story now. But yeah, so it's come in, and that evening I was like, it knows it's there, but I'm going to catch it. I'm going to get the bite. And it didn't actually happen till the next morning. I'm sitting there cooking my bacon rolls. That everyone does, isn't it? And the bobbins just hit the floor. And I've just looked across, seen this bow wave go, because there was a little gap between the pads there. And my theory was, if I put the washing line to a certain angle, it would, when it hit the lead and hit the bank stick effectively, it would just bolt straight between the pads.
So looking at the picture there then, so where would you be fishing in proportion to this picture?
So there's actually that bit of reed pointing to the right in the middle of the picture.
Yeah.
So my bank stick was just to the right there, and then my rod was, so the line's going across the swim from left to right, and the bank stick on the right hand side, and the fish obviously picked the rig up and just bolted straight between the two sets of pads.
Wow.
So it did exactly what I wanted it to do.
Yeah.
And the line just went across the top of the pads, and I was playing the fish out in open water.
Wow.
But yeah.
It worked well there then, didn't it?
It was the one time I used it on there. But
again, do you think a method like that, you needed that? I mean, obviously that fish was quite a twitchy fish anyway. Knew the situation anyway.
I mean, I found out someone else, a friend of mine, had actually been fishing for it a couple of days before there. And
conventionally
I'm not sure whether he was or he wasn't, but after he found out I caught it, he was like, and then he found out where I caught it from. He's like, "Oh, you bastard!"
Yeah,
And
that was the only fish there that whole period, was it? Or
yeah, that was the only one.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a loner, that one.
Your experience with catching fish, seeing them in close as well. You often you would imagine seeing a fish on its own like that is going to be a lot more difficult to catch.
Yeah, because there's no competition, isn't it?
There's nothing.
That's
there.
why his fins were quivering.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was amazing watching it. But then to actually,
I guess if you've got a fish that's in the area the whole time and there's bait there the whole time, eventually it's too impulsive.
It gets the better of it, doesn't
Yeah.
it? A couple of tiger nuts and a little bit of hemp and
tigers and hemp.
Tigers and hemp. Tigers and hemp did well on there. I did very well on boilie on there. I caught Plodder 3 times on boilie, to be fair. The Italian, I caught him. I actually caught the Italian from a little bit further up behind the pads.
Why would you change between tigers and hemp and boilies?
Time of year.
Just post spawning boilies.
Right, yeah. There's the Italian. So I caught that on a 1/4 ounce running lead and a ball of maggots.
Right.
Literally, So I'm fishing the I can never remember the name of the swim. There's a swim to the right of the bungalow, fishing out in open water, and I heard a fish show in my margin to my left. I was like, "Wow, they can't be there." Anyway, the next morning I woke up, I've had a little look where it was. I was like, right, I'm going to put some bait there. And just put a handful of maggots there. And I wound one of my rods in from the open water and just laid it on the floor, took my delkim off, laid that on the floor, and just placed it down there that evening. And I thought, if they come back in tonight, I'm having little running lead, little simple ball of maggots, literally a handful of maggots round it, and that went off, just before dawn.
Beautiful fish, aren't they?
That thing, yeah.
Do you think there's a lot of male? They look like male fish as well, don't they? These ones.
The Italian didn't lose much weight, so
yeah. I mean, great big fins on it, pecks on it as well.
It's crazy, but I got on the front cover of Carp Talk. So from being a kid seeing Carp Talk, and then to go on the front cover with that, and I actually got on the front cover of the Christmas edition with the same fish that year. So twice in the same year with the same fish. I don't know if they realised. But
how did that feel, seeing yourself on the front cover after reading it for so many years?
The first front cover I had was I don't really like talking about stuff like this, but it is what it is. But the first front cover I had was with Braxted Front Lake Common, a £30 common. So my first £30 common, 2001. And I got a phone call from someone, Dave Pendergrass. Ash, you on the front cover? I was like, what? What are you on about? And this, again, these are magical periods because you didn't know you were going to be on the front cover of these magazines. It was like every week, everyone was like, that I guess you were like, you sent your pictures into Carp, but you had no idea whether you'd get near the front, at the back, or be on the front cover.
No social media then, really, was there? So it's
none of that, literally nothing like that.
It had to be in Carp Talk, didn't it?
So it was that. There's no denying it. That was a massive buzz for people. And for anglers, and maybe that must have had something to do with the rise of carp fishing, like expanding the way it did. Was this after Terry's book? This was just after,
because Terry's book probably came out right. So it was just after Terry caught it. Yeah. So everybody, it was well on the radar. Then.
Yeah. Terry had been there, Jim had been there. Not that you were following them, but it was like, I don't know. For me, it was just like, look at it. Why would you not want to catch that carp? Was
that an influence on you, though, to think that those sort of anglers had fished there previously?
Yeah, because it was a challenge, isn't it? Because you think... And you're obviously holding up fish that these anglers had caught as well. And,
Yeah, and they're special carp. No question about it. They are just... they're quite unique fish, those, aren't they?
Yeah, that... the common and Plodder. Leicester's I never caught. I lost it off the top. Gutted, that was... I'm sure it's Leicester's, but yeah. So I had my chance with it, but you can't catch them all, can you? What
about floater fishing on there then? Because you were saying with the common and stuff. So there were opportunities then.
Yeah, my first fish out there. So I'd been there 5 days, as I said, with James sitting being his gilly, and I remember there was another angler floater fishing further up the lake, and he'd been catapulting some mixers out, and these mixers had drifted down in front of me, and there was a few fish taking. So I started pulling some mixers out as well, and they were taking. I thought, I'm going to catch one now. This is my chance. And I had a 24-pound. My first fish was a 24-pounder off the top, and apparently they didn't really get caught off the top, and I had like 10 fish off the top in the next couple of weeks.
Is that just because no one's actually fishing on the top for them?
They were just super tricky. Like, they were as tricky to catch off the top as they were in the edge. Yeah. I was using the Enterprise fake mixers, Camazan B175s, size 6s or 8s on top of them, making sure that they flipped over. I was soaking them in a dip, and they just couldn't resist them. Like if I literally every cast, I'd drop it in this dip, cast it out, and it would just ooze off this mixer, and they just come up and nail it.
But not afraid, like you say, to move, put the bait right on their noses all the time.
I would cast and cast and cast and cast at them until I managed to get it just perfect, and if it was in front of its face enough, like zig fishing,
just cast well behind them and just wind back towards them when they and you find what do you think that is? Just because it's aggression more than anything?
It's just in their path, isn't it?
Yeah, they just think, just get out my way.
I'm sure it's the same as zig fishing. If you can get your hook bait in the right depth, in the right place, and it's the right colour, then and floater fishing is no different. In a way, bottom fishing is no different, isn't it? Because you can cast at 100 different spots in your swim, but if it's not on that spot where they feed, you're not going to catch them.
But we just accept we're more patient on the bottom.
Yeah, a lot more patient.
Because we don't know what's going on.
Once your rods are out on the bottom, it's the mystery, isn't it, of what's going on underneath that water. So,
did they ever wise up to mixers on there?
I had them that first year. I had them pack-manning on mixers a couple of times. To be fair, I had two springs on there, and I caught plenty of fish both those springs. I don't know about afterwards, but there were a few people that were like, he's got another one. But that's I like hunting them at the end of the day. I like bait and waiting as well at periods of time, at certain times a year, but fundamentally I like finding the fish and fishing for them and being in that moment, where they are.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great way to fish, and actually listening to Chris on the podcast as well, talking about his floater fishing. Chris said he, with Raysbury, when he caught those fish in the late 80s out of there, the amount of time that he spent really walking around that lake to get those one-off opportunities.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the time we get too fixated on, I've got to be in that swim or I've got to be in this swim. But if you spend more time looking and a tenth of the time actually fishing, you'll catch more fish.
Yeah, and a lot of anglers as well. Again, a recent conversation we've had, it's the very best anglers, you find that there's no dead time in their fishing.
No, yeah.
So, it's fishing all the time. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of that, There's a winding period and there's a social period where you could spend a good few hours completely switched off from what you're actually there for.
But I think you need to, though, sometimes. Again, different periods of my life, different pressures. At that time in my life, I had nothing else to worry about apart from catching a fish.
Was there a lot of dead time in your fishing then? It sounds like you were making friends and socialising a bit with people.
It's just magical times because time was no object. Like it felt like you had forever. It was a bit like Peter Pan, I guess. Just, and then obviously the capture of the Toll Common was the end really for that, and a new chapter started. I met Anita, and then life got a little bit more serious.
A bit more responsibility there. Yeah.
Definitely.
So how did you? We got a picture up on the screen here.
Oh Christ, yeah. That's
so the two of you in a car here. Is this quite relevant then to the story about how you actually met in the first place?
Yeah, it was actually that car as well. It was a year
what
before.
What car was that?
It was a Range Rover, my dad's Range Rover. So yeah, I was privileged to drive that every now and again.
I was going to say, you haven't got the beard there, Ash.
No, I haven't got the beard.
That?
I've got the Harry Potter glasses or whatever they are.
And I suppose that's good for the girls, isn't it? If you pull up in a Range Rover as well. I've never had that privilege.
Well, it certainly worked that day. Well, the story behind it really was a mate of mine rang me up. I was actually fishing Toll, and he was like, he goes, I've got some girls that need picking up from Stansted Airport. I was like, right. And of course I accepted, as you do. And but I did say I need some money for it to cover the petrol.
I'm not surprised with that thing.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
What's that, about 15 to the gallon?
I had to budget. Definitely every week I had to budget the amount of miles I did to how much money was in my pocket. But yeah, so we went and picked these girls up, and yeah, but the funny thing was the first time she set eyes on me, I had my mate in a headlock in Stansted Airport. Now, this is going back 20 years now, so it was a gut to 20 years, and could you imagine today now if you had someone in a headlock in Stansted Airport, you'd probably have armed police all over you, wouldn't you?
Is that the sort of thing you would do as well, Toby, at the moment? You at that sort of age where you're sort of wrestling with your mates?
Well, hopefully not in an airport. Like I said, that probably wouldn't end very well.
And the crazy thing, like, it felt like there was no one round us either, so it was like even more random. Like we're just having a fight in the middle of Stansted Airport, and but yeah, so that was it. And then I remember, obviously, we got back to Chelmsford, and I remember like 2 or 3 of them like fighting over who was going to give me the money. I was like, this is a bit strange, right? But then, mate, obviously later on told me, one of those girls likes you. Anyway, a year later, so a year passed. We hadn't met like properly. We had been out. So
when you picked her up the first time, then was it like love at first sight, or?
It wasn't for me because I was, mate, I've got like 5 birds in my car. I didn't know what was going on. Like it was.
I thought you were going to say I've got Plodder on my mind.
Well, Plodder was done, fortunately, but I definitely had the next phase already going on. But I think there was plans of going to the Essex Manor and stuff like that. But yeah, a year later, we randomly met through chance again. We went on a night out. Some of the lads from school got together because one of the lads' fathers had passed away, and we're going to their funeral the next day. So we decided to go out on a night out, and literally Titch rang Anita up and said, you need to get out, we're going out in Chelmsford. And she'd actually split up with her boyfriend and stuff, so it sort of timing wise was sort of all fell into place. And literally that night I put my arm around her, and that was it pretty much. The rest is history.
She was yours. She melted in your arms.
I don't know if she melted. She resisted a little bit, to be fair, for a little while, but she didn't have a chance really. Cause,
and I guess the question with this is, when fishing comes out, and when it's as obsessional as what it is for you, you know. I mean, she knew all about this straight away, did she?
She had no idea what she was letting herself in for,
No.
to be honest. But she, you know, I mean, my life did change massively over the next sort of year or so that we were together. I was probably at the point where, not my life was going nowhere, but I didn't really know where my life was going to go. And I met her right at the right time. And yeah, she sort of sorted me out a little bit, gave me a purpose, and yeah.
So you mentioned the Essex Manor. So that was so around that period, that was the water that you had on your mind following Tolpits, was it?
Yeah, I'd met a friend actually when I was fishing snakepit, and we became friends, Jim Matthews, and over sort of the next few years, we fished together a little bit, and our paths crossed, and he got a ticket on the Essex Manor before me, and you know, I managed to sort of blag my way in. I remember going, I think it was county angling or something like that I turned up. Obviously, handed my money over to join it, and I got a ticket quite late, actually, like the second week or the first week of April.
I was going to say, getting tickets on there then, was it quite difficult?
It's the same thing with a lot of places nowadays. You know, it's who you know, isn't it? And if someone puts the right word in, then you get a chance at least, and then it's up to you to make of it what you will. But yeah, I got my ticket, and first session down there, I'd actually done a guest session the year previously in October or something, and fluked to 27 on a couple of bits of plastic.
Sorry,
corn.
what year was this?
That would have been 2004. So
Right.
yeah, it was just after Tolpits, and I was sort of trying to figure out where I wanted to go from there, and obviously did that guest session. I was like, I need to get a ticket on this lake, you know. At the time, there was a couple of 40-pounders. Obviously, the Annie was in their sort of high 40s at that time. And I think maybe it was just creeping into the £50 sort of bracket, and obviously a 50-pounder in those days was
one of the biggest fish around, wasn't it? Yeah.
A mega carp, mega looking carp. And then yeah, my first session down there as a member, I remember hearing this fish show the opposite side of the lake to me, and I was like, oh my god, what was that? Like, and it at the time it had to be the Annie. You know, I think the Annie and the Stella were £40 then. Northern Lynn, I think, was there or thereabouts, £40, and then there was like 20, 30, 40, 30s to back it up at the time. And really, like that first session I went down there, I got lucky. I caught a couple of lovely 30-pounders off the bottom, just at the bottom of the ledge, fishing really simply. But I kept seeing these fish show like out in the middle of the lake, over the deepest area of the lake as well, and it's like April time, as it were, you know, perfect sort of zig time. You know, the water's just warming up, they're getting revved up by the sun, and I was like, I knew then, I thought I'm going to have a little go on zigs.
How much zig fishing had you done prior to that?
Obviously from childhood, using floating crust on running ledges and things like that, and back in probably when I first passed my test, I remember going to a sort of more commercial lake, and it was February time and freezing cold, but the sun was out that day. And at the time, I still carried like my general course fishing bag, so I had my pike stuff, my trout stuff, and my carp stuff. And I was catching a few first thing in the morning off the bottom, and then the sun's come out like beaming, like beautiful, one of them beautiful February days, cold, but like skies were blue, and I stopped getting bites, and I was like, they've got to be up in the water. So I've sort of put this little contraption together, including a pike float and a little boom section, and then tied a little, basically setting it up like a marker float setup.
Yeah.
And tied a little 1.5 foot link on top of it with a little 10mm pineapple pop-up. Chucked it out there, popped it to the surface, and sort of, to my amazement, it came up to the surface. I'm like, yeah, there's the float. There's the hook bait.
Had you seen anybody else doing anything like that?
I'd never seen anyone.
I mean,
do
that was an
before.
ingenious idea, wasn't it?
Well, there was me taping. I had some electrical tape in my bag. That's like mad. I'm taping this red pike float up so that the fish wouldn't see it. I don't know whether it would have made any difference, but yeah, I remember that first time I chucked it out, I was like, this is all a bit weird. But obviously I set it to about a foot below the surface. It was about 13 foot of water. I thought they were probably going to be in the first 2 or 3 feet under the surface. And then nothing happened for half an hour. I thought, this is getting a bit boring, which is probably where most people would have given up. And I literally just put it down another 6 inches, and I turned my back, didn't even sit on my chair, and the delkins just started warbling away, and I'm looking at it going, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Obviously lifted into it. I was like, I've got fish on. This is a bit. And then the rest of the day was a blur, really. I think I caught like 15 fish, and it was crazy.
So you put that down to that, that alteration in depth?
Yeah, the accuracy, because I only had one pike float, and I put a static zig out to the left, and I think I got like 2 bites on that throughout the whole day, compared to, I don't know, 15 bites on the other, on the adjustable setup, and that was it for me. From then on, every lake I went to that had a little bit of depth for a little while, like which were not overstocked, but those sort of commercial venues where there's lots of fish, and if you can put a hook bait in front of them, they're hungry, etc., then it worked really well.
How many other people sort of catching on to the what you were doing there as well? I mean, casting out those long hook links can be a pain, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, those days it wasn't like it is now, where everyone's watching every move you're making, especially on commercial venues. No one's really that bothered, because they're all catching fish to some sort of degree. But it was only when I went to the Essex Manor, and I was like, I turned up there, saw what I saw, and I was like, I think there was a couple of good anglers who said, no, zigs don't really work on there, and I was like, that was like a red rag to a bull. I was like, yeah, but I've got the adjustable in my armoury. Like people had been using 10, 12, 15 foot static zigs, but obviously not really catching.
You think that's where they were struggling then? The fact that they couldn't keep changing depths regularly enough.
Yeah, and it genuinely is all about the depth. Like on the Essex Manor, it was so my second session down, I had one zig float, and I chucked one. Those people that hate people folding reel handles. I'd won a couple of. I think I'd won 3 tournament 6,000 Ts.
Did you?
For catching Dippy. I actually don't think I won. That wasn't the prize. It was a couple of rods and a couple of reels, but me being me, I sent them an email going...
Who was the competition with?
Daiwa in Angling Times.
Jeez, that was a good prize.
Angler's Mail.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, the prizes in them magazines in those days were amazing. But yeah, I've sent this email going, please, would you mind if I had 3 6,000 Ts instead of a couple of rods, because I've had rods. And they were like, yeah, no problem. So I blagged 3 6,000 Ts, and and obviously folding the reel handles. But I had my fourth rod, and I remember I was like, well, I don't want to put it on the right, I don't want to put it on the left, I've got to put it in the middle. So I had an 80,010 on my floater rod set up that I had with me. So I've had to unscrew the bloody thing, put it in between my other 2 rods. Anyway, I chucked it out there, moved it a couple of times, and I've had a bite. And I was like, this is mental. But it was a single bleep. Obviously, I'm fishing in depths I'd never fished before, like 25 foot of water. I'd fished sort of up to maybe 15 foot before. But this single bleep, and I just remember looking at the bobbin, and I was like, is that fish on? And it just quivered, and it went up a bit tighter, and I was like, mate, that's a bite. Picked into it, playing it for about 10 minutes, and it felt big. Felt like it's just slow, ponderous, and then the hook fell out, and I was like, oh. But I was like, I've had a bite, that is it. And then obviously over time you realise that once you get that first occurrence or the first bite, that's all that matters. Once you've got it once, you've got the hook bait, you've got the depth, it's game on.
Does the depth not change very much after that then, do you find? I mean, obviously water temperatures are changing. And,
yeah, as obviously in fluctuations with the weather, but there's like a very specific period in the spring, mainly when the hawthorns come out. The blackthorns are always every year. As soon as the blackthorn comes out into bloom, you know that, like, even having the lakes that I've got now, you know that's when the lake switches on. And then a little bit later the hawthorn comes out with the rape, and it's genuinely when the rape first comes into bloom, and you can, like if you're driving along and you smell rape field or whatever, and
yeah,
it's a little bit out there, but I'm like, oh, it's zig time. But because everything, the natural life everywhere, whether it's the insects, or under the water, everything's coming, because the water temperatures are coming up, everything's hatching.
Uniform,
yeah. And it was, I've turned up at, it was, so I've had that first bite, and I remember thinking, right, this is it. I put it back out there, and it's gone again within 20 minutes. But I've had to go that afternoon, and I was like, I'm going to have to come back. Like, armed the next time. But they weren't really showing in front of me. They were showing more. So I'm in the steps, but they were showing more in sort of in front of a peg called the 18. I think it was the pump. And I was like, the next time I come back, I've got to get into that swim. And literally, I've got into that next swim the week later. And within a couple of hours, I've had the first bite again. And then just over the next 3 days, it was just complete carnage, you know.
The fish were localised. They stayed in the same area, did they, or were they a bit more nomadic?
Well, obviously, with the manor being sort of oblong shape, you know, they'd just be cruising up and down the middle. You know, there's 10, 12 anglers fishing for them. They're heavily pressured fish. Everyone at the time was fishing on the bottom, and I'm turned up there and done something that really no one else has done, and worked the layers until I found the depth. And all I went on was 2/3 of the depth, and there was a little bit of variation where you could get a bite. You know, like, I've never told anyone this before, but
there we go, Tim.
My first bite was 9 foot under, and then I got a couple of bites at 9 foot under, but then 8 foot under in front of the 18 was the one. Just short of halfway out. You'd see them in the morning. I'd actually see them coming towards me, and I was like, you know, here we go. So
sorry, 8 foot. That was around midish sort of depth then, was it?
2/3 of depth.
2/3 depth.
So it was 24 foot of water out there, and 8 foot under was the one.
Wow. And what did you go on to catch?
That session, it was crazy, really. I think I had 16 fish. I think I had 17 bites, 16 fish.
That is mental.
On 2 rods. Well, it started off on 1 rod, but actually Leon Bartrop gave me a second float, because I was like, I need another float. So he's lent me a second float. And then literally every morning I'd reset the rods, like, as the light would come up, because at the time they hadn't really been fished for in that way. So I was getting a lot of bites during the day. And
did you tinker with anything once you got that depth? So you go in, you'd have both your rods set at that.
Yeah, both. Once you get one bite with them adjustables, and the right hook bait, that was an orange pop-up back in those days. It was actually I can't remember what was it, Jacko Specials.
Oh yeah,
that was like the in thing at the time on there. It was like, if you got Jacko Special on, you're going to get a bite. I was like, well, I'll try one on the adjustable, and it was unbelievable, really. Like, it could have been any colour, but that I think on there at that time, they were hungry fish. They've been fed, you know, like, they were seeing serious amounts of boilie, and I bet they were eating half of it either as it's popping off the bottom, as it's been sat there a few days, or dropping down as well.
But I mean, it's a very predatory sort of method, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not. We'll get into zig rigs actually in a minute, because I think the subject needs a little bit. I mean, you're just about as best a qualified person to be able to talk about that, but I mean, you don't bait up. You don't, you know.
No, you're single hook bait fishing.
It's completely single.
Yeah, and I'm not single. Like, as a boilie fisherman, I'm not single. I can't stick a chod out there, or a stiff link, or a Ronnie, or bottom bait, snowman, whatever, without putting some bait around it. I like getting them feeding. But with zigs and big fish, it is fundamentally single hook bait fishing, just effectively in their path. Same as Tolpits, how I used to catch them off the top there. It was literally putting it in front of their nose, and they almost couldn't refuse it in those days.
It's quite obvious, isn't it, when you talk about it like that?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's mental.
But it's like spinning a lure, you know, across a fish enough times as well, isn't it? I mean, they keep seeing that, and they just eventually, because they're curious as well, aren't they? And
who was it the other day? Alan Blair went salmon fishing for the first time, and he said I think he said something like, you know, the standard salmon angler would sit in the same drift or peg or whatever and cast 100 times. They were doing a couple of casts and moving, and it's, you know, obviously that's a completely different style of angling, whereas zig fishing is you are fundamentally leaving that hook bait there at that certain depth for them to swim by, and eventually, you know, it gets the better of them. I mean, one day, this is a little bit later on, so a couple of weeks later, or it may even been the following year, I was up a tree, had my zigs out, but I'd actually had them 2 or 3 feet under the surface, and I remember seeing a pod of fish, like 4 or 5 of them swimming along, and I was like, oh, they're right on my hook bait now, and I remember seeing one sort of go towards it and another one sort of barged it out the way. Next thing I know, my Delkin's gone into meltdown. I'm scrambling down this tree trying to get to it as quick as possible, and I had a beautiful linear that day.
Do you think that's what was going on the manor as well? You had there were a number of fish out there that were competing for that.
Yeah, I can't remember how many fish. Was it 100 fish? There may have been 100 fish in there at the time. So you've got 8 acres of water, and at that time of year they do group up, they shoal up, they swim around together, and it literally is that competition thing again. It's like if you get one fish feeding off the top, it's a lot harder to catch than if you've got 3 or 4 and they're competing for that food. It just becomes not easy because you've got to do everything.
We got some
right.
pictures, Toe, with those fish. We got the
Essex
Annie.
Manor. Yeah, we've got the Annie.
We got
the Essex Manor. I think there's a few zig fish.
That must have got some of the guys talking on there when you turned up and started having a result like that.
Oh, there's the Annie. Yeah, that's 3 years later.
We're looking at the Annie now.
Blood, sweat, and tears went into
one
that.
of one of the country's best known carp, really, isn't it? I would say.
Oh, mate, that day when that came across me in front of the swim and I saw them drop scales, my legs melted properly. But it came at a good time. Again, I'd spent 3 years fishing for it. I'd been very close. I knew that fish inside out. I knew where it was going to get caught from as a rule. A lot of times it got caught before I turned up. Either the night before or the morning. I'd turn up and it'd be like, oh, it's been out, and it'd come out the peg that I thought it'd get caught. But yeah, it was a special fish.
I mean, it's a funny shaped fish, isn't it? That.
Yeah, it's just a brute, isn't it?
It's fairly square, isn't it? And then the tail's sort of bolted on. It's
well, in its later years, it just it dropped a bit.
Sorry, what was the weight of it there? Did you say, Ash?
I think it was 58.2. So yeah, still my PB today.
Yeah, you're going to struggle to beat that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd like a £50 common. That would be my. In the old days it was like a £40 leather, £40 mirror, £40 common, but
I've still not caught a £40 common.
Have you not?
I think I said to you the other day, I'm 2 ounces under. Yeah.
You have to come to our lakes then.
Well, I need somewhere to go fishing at the moment anyway, so that is that's awesome. And to go onto a water like that, and it's nice to be a bit revolutionary, isn't it? And demonstrate a new method to everybody like that.
I mean, I didn't. It wasn't. I was just doing my thing, really. It's like in all my angling, I'll turn up at a lake and I'll try and suss out what method is going to be the one to sort of open it up, really. And
sorry, talking about big commons, got to throw that one up as well. What's the size of that?
Oh, that is that.
That's the bream common.
That is the bream. Yeah. There you go. There's the rape.
Yeah, you can see it behind you. Yeah.
Right.
And like you say, that sweet smell, which you really, when you mentioned that to me before, you take that smell for granted so much, don't you? But
it's like, I don't know if I said it earlier, it's like music takes you back to a certain era.
Oh yeah.
Gives you a certain feeling.
Yeah.
Photographs do the same thing, and smells, and that.
Well, you're a bit of a countryman anyway, aren't you? You're an outdoors person, and you're more sensitive possibly to nature's changes.
Well, so many people, like, if you're not an angler, you don't see the sun come up in the morning, do you? Or the sun go down, and experience those beautiful things that we're fortunate to experience.
Yeah.
And the rape and the hawthorn, like, I don't know. I live every winter for those first few days of sun, and in April, and the warmth coming through, and the rape coming up. And
it's definitely not coincidental. I mean, I know on Save there's a swim on there, one down, and there's a bush behind. I can't remember what the name of the flower is, but at the right time of year, around September time, September, it goes red. So if anybody catches a fish in the swim at that time, and they've only got a couple of weeks, I can't remember what it is, but I mean, those changes as well, that sort of thing is, if nature's subtle, changing like that, there's subtle changes are going on under the water as well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like that lake, the manor, you could see it come alive. So I remember, the reeds in the background, I could hear them cracking that session. So as the sun's coming out, you sort of hear these subtle cracking noises, and just everything came alive at that time. You can see in the trees in the background, they're not fully in bloom. It's just, it's a very defined period of time of year. It's generally mid-March to mid-April for the zigs. And I don't actually use zigs that often these days, but if I do, that's when I'll use them, you know.
And you think it's an underestimated big fish method as well?
It can be, although these days a lot more people are using them. And I'm actually finding now, during the day, you don't get bites as much as you used to. It seems to be at night that they're a little
Why do you think that is?
They can't see, can they, as much? So they don't, you know, I think they've
started to identify it as
100%. They've wised up to it. So the lake I'm fishing at the moment, say at the moment, I'm not really fishing it that much, but when I do go, I had a little go a few weeks ago, and I couldn't get a bite during the day. I had 3 out there. I was like, I'm going to clean up. It was just perfect for it. You know, literally, I was like, it's going to happen. And all day, that first afternoon, evening, I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm changing the depths, changing the hook baits, all the rest of it. And then middle of the night, bang, off it goes. Like, I started getting occurrences, and I was like, I'm going to get a bite in a minute. And then I caught a lovely 20-pound common.
I assume you're using lighter colours at night, are you? Or is it?
No, black. That was
so
on
you're
black.
Still using black. Are you using any sort of extra attraction in that as well?
I use my own pop-ups as a rule. You know.
So at night, would you go for more attraction in the hook baits than you necessarily would during the day with that? Or
I don't think it really matters, to be honest. I used to, so on the Essex Manor, it was just orange pop-ups. Then I did, obviously, at the time I didn't have black pop-ups, so I used black foam, but I was flavouring them, and I was catching at night on them. But it was predominantly during the day on the Essex Manor. Whereas these days, if you're going to get a bite on a zig, it seems to be at night. It's obviously quite high up in the water as well, around the full moons and stuff. Seems to be good.
Have you noticed that as well? We've had some pretty dramatic moons recently, actually, and do you find that those nights are more effective for that sort of fishing?
Yeah, I think again, there's definitely something in the moons, isn't there? Whether it be the new moon or a full moon, and for whatever reason, it all aligns, doesn't it? And
yeah, I mean, we know obviously with the tides and stuff like that, but when you're talking a method like zigs with a tiny little bit of black plastic in a reasonable depth of water as well, you would think, crikey, how would they identify that?
Well, their vision's obviously far. Simon Scott would tell you anyway. He's far more qualified than I am, but I just go on angling experiences and see. Like if I shine my head torch at the moment into the edge of our lakes, it's alive at night. During the day, nothing. Yeah. And at night, literally, there's water boatmen scooting around your tadpoles, your daphnia, and you're like, wow. Yeah. So they all think they're safe, isn't it? Yeah. They come out, and then obviously the carp come along and nab them, and that's where if you've got your hook bait out there at the right depth, then you're going to have a chance of getting a bite.
And with the, you said as well, your worries with the adjustable rigs initially was the float and whether they would start to identify that. Have you found now over the years more and more people are using that now, that they have come to kind of that the float can go against you a little bit?
I don't, as long as you've got a long enough hook length. So in the old days I used to use fairly short hook lengths, but now if you've got any depth I'll use 4, 5, 6 foot hook lengths. So bundies, I had a ticket on bundies one winter. I only got down there a couple of times and I only fished zigs once. But the first time I did turn up there, I popped this zig fly up. 65 foot of water, and I'm like,
65 foot?
This is ridiculous. But anyway, I settled on 35 foot. I had my hook bait at 35 foot, and it was only there half an hour, and it absolutely melted. So obviously I've gone from the Essex Manor thinking, as a rule it was single bleeps. Sometimes you get a little bit of a delky warble. But yeah, on there, this rod just melted. I actually thought that couldn't be a bite. It was that severe, but I think because of that depth, they probably had that hook bait in their mouth a few seconds before they realised they're in trouble, and then they obviously bolted, and you've got a proper take. But yeah, that was quite well, it's unreal that was, to catch one in that depth of water.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I mean, on a water like that as well, that's when adjustable zigs really come into their own. Yeah. And as a consequence of that as well, you went to Fox with the adjustable.
Yeah, I had just in my head, because obviously I'd been tying up these sort of stiff links with a float on the end, and I just had an idea that if you could make it as one and sell it as a kit, then you'd probably do all right. Yeah. I think they've changed a little bit over the years. Several other companies have brought out their own variations of them, but fundamentally that first setup is by far and away still the best.
Yeah. No, it's
I've still got my original ones. You know, I had 20 of them. I've still got half a dozen left.
What about putting a standard zig rig against an adjustable rig? I mean, would you notice any difference?
I think in shallow water, I probably would use a fixed zig, if you like. But as soon as you get 10 foot, 8, 10, 12 foot and above, then an adjustable, mainly because you can work the layers really, really quickly. You know, the shallower it is 6 inches at a time, the deeper it is a foot at a time, and generally that will find you where you need to be.
But you would rather refine everything down if you've got the chance.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you know, I use generally 3-4 foot hook links, £8. Well, I used to use £8 double strength. Now I use just a light mono, £10 the Korda stuff.
I mean, you know, we've gone from one extreme to the next with fishing nowadays, haven't we? I mean, we've gone super heavy, big hooks and everything. Do you still stand by, you know, the lighter approach for that method?
It's interesting because lately I've been using the Kamakuras in size 8, and mate, when they're hooked, they're hooked. It's simple as that. But I'd like to use a size 10 because I definitely found in the smaller the hook bait you could get away with. You know, the Essex Manor was a little bit different because it hadn't been done. I think they were naive. They'd been used to eating 80mm baits, so 14mm, 15mm pop-up trim down was nothing to them. And whereas today, I think the finer you go, probably the more bites you would actually get.
Yeah.
You know. But certainly with in those days as well, the small bits of black foam, you know, trimmed down to look like a bug, and a size 10 or a size 12 wide gape was the one.
You still think that they are identifying that with an insect or
for sure.
Right. They're not just taking it because it's there in front of them. And
no, I think when you're using black foam, so I fished Frimley a little bit. When was that? 2008 time, 2009, and that was interesting actually, because what I'd learnt again April time, I've turned up there, thought I'm going to have a go on zigs, and I spent probably a day or two not really getting any bites. I got caught a couple at the end of my first session, and that was literally because I'd been working too deep. So I'd started off 3 foot down and going further down, and actually the sun came out and I could see backs out in the middle, and I was like, I've just spent 36 hours fishing too deep for them. And as soon as I went up in depth, I did have black foam on at that time, and I got a couple of bites, but then I moved to brown foam, and that was it. The next session I had 10 fish, and I lost a real good one as well. But that's always fish. The way.
You account that just down to the colour. I mean, brown and black are quite similar.
I had one on black, one on brown, and the brown was going. So I moved the one on black to brown, and both of them started going. So 100% there was,
So we're saying that a carp's eyesight is a bit more advanced than what maybe some of us give them credit for.
You only have to watch them in the edge when they're feeding, in 2-3 foot water, like Tolpits, that common. It knew, they. I'm not saying they can see hook and stuff like that, but they definitely feel when they're being fished for. And if you've got everything blended in, like in those days, I used to coat my own leads and everything to match the gravel, and I'd go white. I'd never do anything like that these days, but they were pressured, tricky fish. So every little percentage that you thought was giving you that edge was worthwhile doing.
Do you find as well, I mean, does depth play a part in them being able to identify colours more accurately? I
would have said so.
Yeah.
The deeper it's natural, isn't it? Because there's less light, isn't it? But it's like Rob Hughes did a good video on YouTube, didn't he, with the wheel of colours, and interestingly, we think yellow stands out the most, but it actually doesn't underwater. You don't see it until it's right up there in front of you, whereas black you can see from a long way away. So in my opinion, in the spring, when they're just waking up, if they've only got that much time to decide whether they want to take something, when it's a foot or a few feet in front of it, whereas if they're 10 foot away, they can go, I know that's dodgy. And I think that makes a little bit of a difference, which is why I generally use yellow to start with.
Right.
all the time these days. As a rule, it's yellow.
We've just got something up on the screen here, actually.
Found an article actually by where Simon Scott did something with.
How good is a carp's eyesight? Question. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
That carpology. Yeah.
That was in carpology.
With Simon Scott, he did an interview with them.
Yeah, that was.
I've just read.
That's quite recently, last year.
Yeah.
Research has shown that carp, like many fish species, have well-developed colour vision. Unlike our own eyesight, a carp has evolved to work well in low light levels.
Yeah.
And
that's why. That's why zigs at night work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they can, even in the depths, when you've got that full moon, they've got that little bit extra light as well, and therefore their hunting instincts just take over, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. So. Do you find a lot of people, as they might not do after listening to this podcast, but tend to disregard zig rigs a little bit at night as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. I used to.
Yeah.
But mainly from my experiences on, leading up to really Frimley again, I got all my bites during the day as a rule. Essex Manor, all during the day. Whereas now, when I'm getting bites, it's at night. And is that because other people are now using zigs? I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it definitely is. That's an interesting article. That I can see coloured water. What's it? In really cloudy or coloured water, it's unlikely that a carp can see well. In this type of environment, it will become increasingly reliant on its other senses for navigation and when searching for food. Yeah. That's
where your little flavoured pop-up probably comes into it. So, again, if you're fishing a more sort of commercial lake, I did a piece, where was that? Drayton Reservoir, sloppy spod mix. I
was going to ask you about that. That
was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like... Same as layer. I've done a couple of sessions over layer, like spotting over zigs, but that's fixed zigs because it's only 8-9 foot deep.
Spooner was doing that, wasn't he, on a blog recently, wasn't he?
Yeah, and you can. The day I did it down there, I didn't even turn up to fish, but a mate of mine was fishing. He was spomming. I was like, "Oh, do you mind if I stick a zig to the side of your spot?" And he was like, "Yeah, of course you can." So I put this 5 foot zig out, literally 10 foot to the left of his spot. He's spomming out. I'm spomming out for him as well, and I couldn't keep a rod in the water. But I was catching 15-pounders all day long, and he was catching 20-pounders off the bottom.
Right.
So there's another little thing that I think, don't get me wrong, the Essex Manor, if I caught those fish today, I'd have caught 10 40s in that session, which is absolutely mind-blowing, isn't it? But as a rule, yes, you can catch big fish on zigs, and I did catch one specific fish that I targeted, and I got lucky, really, the Braxton backup. I caught that on an adjustable, and that was the first I'd actually been sent. I think you got a picture of it, Toby, the Braxton backup.
God, you've got some nice fish.
That's lovely, that is a lovely fish. Massive. Still going today as well. It's like near 50 pound now.
Yeah, that's an awesome looking fish that we're looking at now, and
Braxton backup. That is
little undersung mouth. Not a huge mouth on that one either, by the looks of it.
No, its mouth's mint. Considering it's got caught quite a few times over the years, but that was one June day. The fluff was. I remember I think you can see a little bit. Yeah, you can see the blossom in the background there, and the lake was covered in it, and the sun come out just for a few hours, and I put this adjustable out. I'd just been sent the first prototype from Fox, and I was like, this has got to work. Like, and I've cast it, I've broken the blooming thing, but I've still got the stem, so I've sort of managed to blag another float and sort of attach it to that, cast it out into this fairly thick weed, and it's popped up, and I remember I put it, I think I had it a foot below the surface, because those fish love cruising around slightly. There's a swim called the plateau swim, and where the big ones always seem to hold up slightly to the right of it, and I actually caught lindens off the top a few years earlier from that same zone, and I just thought in my head, if the backup's going to be anywhere, it's going to be out there. And I had it out there for the afternoon, and literally had a single bleep. I was just having a little doze, and a single bleep sort of woke me up. I thought, oh, that's got a chance of going. I reckon it probably, or another fish had tried to take the bait, and then the next thing is just the rod's wrapped down. I can still see it today, like the tip just just like launched round. So I thought, shit, I can't get, and it's just melted. But yeah, a couple of weed beds later, and I think there's a shot of it going in the net actually.
Have you found with you might you probably already gather I don't fish with zig rigs very often. Have you found that single beeps? Do you find that you need to strike more when you're zig fishing? Potentially.
No, I think they do you. They definitely do. I mean, yeah, in the net it's quite impressive.
That's really impressive.
My mate John was with us that
God
day.
blimey,
I
that's
just
a great.
remember him
the
shaking
size
his
of
head,
it just in there, can't you?
Only you could fluke that. And it,
that's
to be
no
fair,
fluke, Ash.
It was,
yeah.
There was a lot of carp in there as well, and to get that one to take the hook bait, yeah, it was pretty.
But you
pretty
think
cool.
that you're still getting done quite a lot on zig rigs?
Yeah, definitely. The lake I'm fishing at the moment, I had quite a few occurrences before I caught that one the other day, or a few weeks back now. And yeah, I think they have wised up to it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Where I'm not saying they mouth the bait, but they're definitely investigating them more than they used to, because no one did it back in the day, did they?
No.
And most of the lakes have had 15 years, 10 years of, it's really blown up now, hasn't it? So
Did you sharpen hooks and stuff prior to using chemicoras? Did you find that especially for that type of fishing?
no, to be fair, I didn't. I just used, as still today, I'll use the sharpest hook out of a pack. I've gone through a phase where I've sharpened hooks. In the winter I'll sharpen them, because if you catch, like my type of fishing I do in the winter is I'll generally go to a lake that's got more fish in it, so I will be getting more bites during the day, so I don't want to be changing the hook every time, so I'll give it a quick sharpen. But as a rule I found they rust, I don't think they're great for the fish either, whereas the sharpest hook out of a pack, for my bottom bait fishing anyway, is what I prefer to use. And the Kamakuras, to be fair, are great for the zigs, but I'd love them in size 10. Damo, Dubby,
Get on it.
We
please.
need to ask someone.
Because I think if you brought them out in a size 10, the thing is at the moment to use them in big sizes, isn't it? Like 6s, choddies and stuff
Well,
like
the
that,
advantage is, we're trying to replicate the sharpness of a small hook, aren't we, with a bigger hook as well?
The smaller the hook you get, the sharper it is anyway.
yeah.
So you don't necessarily. I was actually looking at, I was going through bits the other day, and I was testing the size 12 wide gapes that I had from 10, 12 years ago, and they're as sharp as anything. So.
Well, Chris Ball was on the podcast, and he was mentioning when he was catching those fish off the surface at Raysbury, and he mentioned, Drenham Super Specialists, and
yeah, that's it.
Would you even find a sharp hook? Probably
they're not that sharp. Not Kamakuras. Kamazan B175s were my favourite hook. I used them on the bottom and on float. I still use them to this day for my floater fishing. So.
Those chemically sharpened hooks, when they came around, that was a bit of a revolution in hook sharpness.
Oh, massive! I remember seeing it. Yeah, it's like they're mega, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're just for your choddy. I love using the choddies for my choddy fishing. But on the bottom, I still like to use the sharpest hook out of a pack, because you've got that little bit more in them that they're not going to blunt on a bit of gravel or.
Yeah, I think I do as well. And it depends on the type of the acidity of the water, or the alkaline level of the water. It definitely depends on that as well.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Certain spots, definitely.
You just can't. But they all have their benefits, don't they? If you can use them and get away with them, it's like, well, why wouldn't you? So getting on to just glugging baits and using that sort of thing, more liquid in hook baits with zig fishing. Would you do that, or?
Yeah, for sure. For the last 10, 15 years really, I've rolled my own pop-ups for my zig fishing. And recently I've designed bait sprays to go with them, to glug them and stuff. And a lot of people use goo and bits and pieces like that on the foam. And so, yeah, I think the more attraction you can give anything, the better it is. You've seen that in the underwater filming, isn't it? When the last one they did, with the almond goo. And that sort of
that took off pretty well, didn't it?
Yeah,
after,
just a bit.
Yeah.
So, and I still see, like, someone turned up at the lakes the other day and had 330s out of the mere, and they were all on almond gooed hook baits, So
I've been using the pineapple recently. That's a favourite of mine.
yeah, the pineapple. I love the squid.
The squid's horrendous, isn't it?
Yeah, I do a combo: the squid, the tuna, and the crabs. quite nice.
Yeah.
And that's nasty.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I carry all the goos with me, but I've always been reluctant actually to add extra liquid and stuff to my bait. I mean, if Ali was on here, he was like a big advocate of all that stuff. Actually, getting onto bait and stuff. I mean, around that sort of period with Manor, was that around the time when you started at Tails Up?
Yeah, so I joined the Manor in April, and I blagged a job with Tails Up in the July. I think the June or July. I think it was July, and it was around 2005. First time we won the Ashes for years, and that was
I remember that.
A very special time. You know, I turned up at Tails Up. I saw there was an opportunity. I thought, you know, I could do this. And I'd actually been. It's funny because obviously coming on here, I was going through all my old memorabilia, and I found like all these pages of drawings and stuff of designs for like a bait shop and names and all sorts like. And so I'd sort of been planning to start my own bait company in some way, shape or form anyway, and this opportunity came up at Tails Up, and I sort of did I basically did a rough business plan and showed it to Martin, the owner at the time, who'd just bought it off Jim a few years previously, and he gave me a job, and I was just like, okay. And I started managing Tails Up the next week, and I was like, I didn't have clue what I was doing, to be honest.
Were you big into bait?
I love rolling my own bait, you know, much to my mum and dad's.
all of our parents back in the day.
I used to do it in the kitchen, then I got kicked out of there, so I had to do it in the garage, and but yeah, I love making my own bait. It's such a buzz, like coming up with a little concoction, different flavours and powders and stuff, and then going and using it and catching fish. Like there was one bait I think it was using a Hutch's Addicted base mix with Mainline's Activator and some pineapple, and mate, I'd literally tore everywhere. Like I'd been fishing Little Easton for a couple of years, and then I hadn't caught Finlay, and I caught Finlay in 2 weeks using this bait. I caught it twice. So the first time I caught it, I thought, Christ, like literally, I'm catching these fish. I think you might have a picture of Finlay. And
the process with that, is that so? Because we could discuss a little bit about bait and whether, you know, the benefit of the highest quality ingredients, you know, versus maybe not so great quality bait. But we're looking at a picture of Finlay now, which you've got in your freezer, I think you mentioned before.
Yeah, we won't go there maybe quite yet. Yeah.
Well, it was already dead before it got in your freezer.
Yes, it was. So, yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, I got the phone call, and bless it, still in my. Hopefully, we'll get it done one day.
Taxidermist.
We need a taxidermist. So if there's one out there listening to this that knows someone that's really good and would like to help us, because I think that would be. Imagine that.
Yeah.
I'd.
Well, that was always your intention.
Well, it wasn't my intention. I got the phone call from the owner saying Finlay's obviously passed away, and do you have a freezer? I was like, right, okay. And my dad used to keep a lot of taxidermist things. Like I had my first pheasant done, my first partridge, and things like that.
Have you watched The Lost Boys? Do you remember The Lost Boys when they go into the house and you've got all those?
It was like that.
Really?
It was literally, he had 100 pieces at one point. My dad did, like stag heads and king. He's still got the kingfisher. I've still got a fish that I caught in like '91 and a fox head and stuff.
It's quite creepy, that is.
It's a little bit weird, isn't it? Probably.
You reckon so?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
It's like you've got all these animals that have like passed away, but they've sort of been reincarnated. They've come back to life. And
I think I'd probably stop short of getting one of my dogs done though.
Oh, I don't know if I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit too far.
And with Finlay as well, a fish that you've caught as well, it must be quite strange seeing it, you know.
I give it a little stroke in the freezer whenever I open it.
When you get your dinner out.
Just a little bit of calm. It's like the Buddha, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. Thanks for those good memories.
Don't take the pizza off the top of it or something like
that. You're not joking. With lockdown last year.
Oh, you're joking. What, you had a family food in there as well?
You know, when like everyone was going like crazily to Tesco's and stuff, buying all their food food.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
Move
And-
Finley over to
and
one side.
I didn't go quite as
Bend
bad,
it into the corner.
but I did go and buy a few extra bits. You know, just like instead of buying one mince, I bought two, and it was
Yeah,
like we
it's-
don't have enough room at home, so I'll just put that in the freezer with Finlay. So yeah, but no.
What I'd like to see is if you should have said to someone like, "Oh, go do us a favour. I've got this pack of mints in the freezer.
Yeah.
Go and grab it for us."
But
And see their reaction.
Genuinely, everyone, people who come into Tails Up that know, obviously, and they're like, "Is Finlay still in there?"
It's like common knowledge.
You know, it's gone to the point where now I don't think you could take it out the freezer and bury it, because I don't think that's right. It's got to be done at some point. And like, imagine it displayed up here as well. You know, like a lot of your lads have caught it, a lot of the Korda boys have caught it, a lot of them have fished for it.
Yeah.
So
We're going to have to get a big museum, aren't we, when these gifts go on display?
Flipping out, we're going to have Finlay there as well, aren't we? Yeah, with all sorts.
But the thing is with a picture's a picture like that, as beautiful as that picture is, you know, the Annie got done and it looks amazing.
Where can you find the Annie now then?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
In someone's toilet or something?
No, it is displayed somewhere. So yeah, someone had it done, but it costs a lot of money.
But we can't say where it is.
No, I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Right, no, that's okay.
So,
does it look as you
it
remember
looks
the?
great. Yeah, I should have actually given you a picture of it.
Yeah, okay.
So
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll give you a picture and you can lay it over or something.
But getting back onto bait and stuff, I mean, so are you obviously Tails Up was a well-established, quite a big bait company that actually, not just bait as well, they got into all sorts of...
Yeah, they started doing luggage and I think sleeping bags and
The sleeping bags were the Goliath.
Yeah, Goliath.
That was a top-notch. Damo still uses that sleeping bag. As far as I know, he still uses
There's still a few people out there with them. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We should bring it back, really, shouldn't we? But
yeah,
I'm more... you know, it is me at the end of the day, and now there's a couple of others with us, Dan and Ali, but you know, we've got to concentrate on bait at the moment, and that's sort of where our efforts are. But who knows in time, you know, over the course of time, there's been a couple of periods where I'm like, I'd love to get this design, that design, you know, like little bits of luggage that I'd like to get done for myself, so under the Tails Up banner. So maybe in time we will do stuff.
Where do you see Boilies going at the moment then? I mean, is it all bait in general?
Oh, it's $1 million question. It's changed massively in 15, 16 years.
What in terms of, do you think bait's got better?
I know our bait's got better, but I wouldn't say that's the general rule of thumb.
That's what worries you, isn't it? The fact
Yeah,
that worries
for
us
sure.
in general, that you know, there's it's a cutthroat business nowadays.
Oh, it's
and
massively cutthroat.
and marketing's very, very effective.
Cool. Where do we go? It's, without being too controversial, if you can market a product, an average product, well, you can do very well. But it's probably the same thing for anything in life, isn't it? Marketing, especially with the way media is today, you know, it's so important. I believe, you know, I'm going to say it, the bait we produce, I've spent 15, 16, 12, most of my carp fishing life developing effectively. And it is developed around natural ingredients. You know, like our flagship bait now, the Sea Monster, has over 20 different 25 different powdered ingredients that go into it, which is ridiculous. Whereas other baits out there, you know, you're talking half a dozen.
What's in your mind? What's the most successful process for finding a good bait? I mean, is it giving it to a lot of different anglers and watching the catches, or is it reading out of a textbook and getting the chemistry right?
A blend between the two. Obviously, I've got the experience now to know what ingredient goes with which and what will roll ultimately. Cost obviously comes in to the equation, and then whether it smells and looks good and catches fish. Ultimately, mate, Hellier said it, didn't he? You know, fish will eat their own crap half the time. You know, if you fish sweet corn...
Another one of his famous...
Mate, it's like,
One
where
of
do you
many,
even
that
start
one.
with the amount of stuff he come out with? But, you know, and he's right at the end of the day. But when you're fishing on a lake that you've got 10 up, 20, 30 other members fishing, all doing their own thing, all trying to get their own bait established, if your bait is just that little bit better than the rest, you'll get them hooked. I've seen with our own lakes, you know, the lads who are catching, they're all on the sea monster, you know, and it literally is, it's mind blowing what you can do if you apply a bait. I'd see a lot of people go back a little bit. A lot of people put too much emphasis on how they look. You know, the latest bivvy, the latest rods, the latest reels, etc. And then that last bit of the detail is in the bait and your rigs and your hooks. That's the most important thing, obviously having it in the right place. But they'll spend 600 quid on a new bivvy or a new set of £1,000, £1,200 on a new set of 3 rods, but then be scribbling over 50p of boilie. You know, like,
Yeah.
the amount of lads over the years that have rung me up and gone, oh Ash, I've been offered it 50p a kilo cheaper. And it's like, well, go on then.
Yeah.
You know, if that's, you know, our bait is quality, and it's quality for a reason, because I wouldn't use it otherwise. And that's
In your experience, you know, with bait, are you better off using? Are you better off being different and using something obviously as good as possible and attractive, but being different and using that exclusively for yourself,
Yes.
so the fish haven't got the association, or are you better off maybe with a group of anglers and introducing a lot of bait into the lake?
It can be a bit of both again. So if you've got a lot of people putting the same, you've seen it with mainline over the years, haven't you? Nash to a degree. If you've got a lot of anglers putting a decent quality food source into a lake, those fish will get on it. But if you've got one angler putting the best, so a friend of ours, he makes his own bait at home, small batches of bait. Clayton, bless him, and he fishes a very specific way, but he'll go on to lakes and catch those fish generally quite quickly, because he's using, you know, bait that probably would cost £20-30 a kilo to produce, you know, commercially. So there's a bit of a flip side. You know, you can do one way or you can go the other.
Do you think you need to introduce a lot of it, or is it just putting it a smaller quantity of bait into the right places to get fish reacting to it quickly?
Okay, I've seen both ends of the spectrum. I've seen the Essex Manor where one session I saw 100 kilos of bait going in one session, which is like mind-blowing.
Or one angler or
Between everyone on the lake, 100 kilos went in over a 3-day period. And then I've seen the other flip side of what I've done, where I've turned up at lake, and the first time I turned up there, one of the lads, Daryl, he's walked around with his little Tesco resealable bag with like 50 baits in it. Oh, I don't eat boilies in here, son. I was like, that was like a red rag to a bull. I'm like, it was all about maggots and hemp and stuff, and I was like, oh mate, they're gonna love a boil. They're not £35 for no reason. And literally within 6 months he was on the bait. Joe, who I met at the time as well, he got on the bait, and then a year down the line the three of us had caught, like, I think we had 60 fish of the 120 fish caught for the season on our bait. Like, that was the pro fish back in the day. But the first time I put that in front of a fish, like swimming along the margin, I broke it up and chucked it in just before it got to it, and she's just gone straight down. And he's like, oh, they don't do that on here. I was like, they do now. Like, and it yeah, from there it just, I went from trickling bait in on spots to putting 4 or 5 kilo out at a time. And
do you think there are certain baits, for whatever reason, boilies, that just don't work on certain lakes?
Oh, for sure. Certain baits don't work with certain people as well. Like, and that's genuine. It's right. How you feel. Like, I do believe that. Yeah. You know, there are baits I've used over the years that I just didn't get on with. Doesn't mean to say they're not a good bait. Those companies are still going today, but they just didn't work with my style of fishing.
Why didn't you get on with them then, if they're still a good bait?
I don't know. Like Tolpits, I was using Wilmot's Central B5. Mate, I could catch fish from anywhere on that bait. It was one of the best big fish baits out there for sure. That and Activate back in the day, like, great memories of those baits, you know, pre-2005. But I went from using the B5 on there, caught Plodder 3 times in the first 6 months of having the ticket. And then I changed bait, and I just couldn't get another bite on it. I had to use maggots to get bites, you know, and for whatever reason, just didn't work. Whether it had been done to death on there, I had my own thing. They even knocked up my own flavour combination for me, but it just didn't work. I went back to B5 and started catching again. So
yeah, I think I've seen it as well. I've seen it on.
you see their reaction.
Yeah, for whatever reason, whether it's a certain chain of lakes, I don't know, water quality. I don't know what it is, but there are certain baits that just don't seem to work as well on certain venues. And it says, like the guy said, boilies don't work. Well, boilies do work, but like I say, there are certain baits sometimes that just do not do it for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's a minefield, isn't it? And boilies is a minefield, but all I know is if I'm putting good quality ingredients together with good attractors, good liquid attractors, good powders attractors, good flavours. Flavours have changed massively over the years. You think 20 years ago what was available to you is now not available to you because of EU regulation, because carcinogenics and things like that.
How much is Brexit and everything going to affect you with bait? Is it too early to say at the moment?
Brexit won't affect us because we're fundamentally England, UK based bait company. We do a little bit abroad, but not much. So it ultimately doesn't affect. But what it will affect is these other companies not being able to sell their bait abroad. So the UK is going to suddenly become quite important to them, and that's where it's cutthroat, isn't it? That's where it will drive the prices down even further. And yeah, it's interesting, but you've got to stay.
That must be something that fills you with dread when more and more bait companies come along, and it's it's like getting a painter and decorator in, isn't it? And they can undercut the next guy by.
Well, that's where social media came about. When Facebook got 2008, 2009. Within a couple of years of that, you had. In the old days, I say the old days because I only had 5 or 6 years of it as in the bait game before social media really got strong. But if you had, it was magazines then, wasn't it? That was the way you got your name out there. So if you were a certain size company, you had a certain cash flow. Therefore, you can invest a certain amount of that money into your media and advertising budget, and you had a foothold. Whereas Facebook came along, and all of a sudden you've got the single garage brigade knocking bait up at home, suddenly being able to get thousands of followers almost overnight and make themselves look bigger than they actually are. And before you know it, you've got hundreds. It's hundreds and hundreds of bait companies out there now.
Scary.
And Instagram, Instagram probably for carp anglers is stronger than Facebook, isn't it now?
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, you can make yourself look amazing, but fundamentally not be actually that bigger of a company.
But like you say, results and stuff speak for themselves as well, don't they? So
for sure. Yeah, I don't know if I really answered your question about whether a team of anglers versus one, but if you do have testing bait, certainly I'll always test. If I put a new bait together, I'll test it myself first for a period of time before I let anyone have it, because I don't want someone to use a bait that isn't the best it can be. And I don't effectively, these lads you're giving the bait to, again, their time's precious, everyone's time's precious these days. The last thing you want is them sitting on a lake blanking for 6 months. They wouldn't do it, even 2 or 3 sessions. And that's where the bait game has changed in the 15 or so years that I've been involved in it.
Do you think there's more pressure nowadays to come up with these instant baits? Back in the day, John Baker's coming on the podcast soon as well, so he will get into this as well. But back in the certain baits like milk proteins, you would have to maybe be a little bit more patient with them. But once the fish got onto milk proteins, that was the theory behind that. Do you find nowadays with that pressure that it's coming up with these more instant baits?
Yeah, for sure. So back in the day, 15 years ago, you would have teams come to you, a group of lads, and they'd give you a season on a bait. So you put a bait together, you put it out there for testing, and then all of a sudden it sort of changed from a season to 6 months. And literally now, someone will order a bait off the website, and if they don't catch the first weekend on the bait, there's another bait company they can go and buy the next weekend. It's cutthroat and as brutal as that. But if they catch a PB the first session, that's it.
And that's scary as well, because we know as well with I spoke to Brian Scholes recently, and he mentioned back in the day with sweet Kajalza, it was a NutriBaits ingredient, and Bill Cottam gave him this bait to test, and it was an essential oil. So rather than put 20 drops into his mixer, he accidentally put 20 mil into the mixer, which that sweet cajouza is. It's very sweet, isn't it? And he said the reaction to it initially was instant.
Yes.
The fish was straight on it. The following session, that was the end of it.
Yeah.
And the trouble is nowadays, it's like, well, for your type of, it's like, it's almost like going to a ridiculous level just to be able to sort of...
See, I don't get involved in any of that. I try and, I put a good bait together on a good base mix, and then with the liquids and powdered extras and extracts, a lot of it's extract based. At the end of the day, the flavour of the bait is the label of the bait, and then you smell a roast dinner, it's going to be good for you, doesn't it? And it's the same thing with the fish, but if that roast dinner smells amazing, and then you eat it and it makes you feel dodgy, you don't go back to that roast dinner the next day, do you? So that's where the bait side of things. I know everything we put in our baits is natural. All effectively then off the back of that, all the amino acids that are in the bait, they're analysed, mate. Those fish are still. We're not connected to it anymore. When you go and buy your chicken from a superstore, Tesco's or whatnot, it's there packaged for you. You don't see it as a live animal, do you? And
I feel like that with my breakfast this morning. Actually, my McDonald's breakfast, right? I mean,
we're so removed.
You feel like shit when you've eaten it,
but you can't help but have it.
But you still go back.
You still go back. But it's convenient, isn't it? And effectively, boilies are a similar thing. It's convenient for them. Our lakes at the moment, they are alive, absolutely alive with natural life. And sometimes you think, why are they even eating bait? They don't even need to, but they know it's an easy food source and it's good for them. Yeah. So
it's a complex thing, isn't it?
It's you can spend hours and hours talking about. It is a minefield, absolute minefield.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. Anyway, I mean, like I said, the good thing is, Tails Up are well respected and established, and it's important to see companies like. Stay around anyway, isn't it? So
you can't stand still, though.
No,
you really can't.
Yeah.
But we'll maybe talk about that.
Yeah, no, we will do. What was this about the quarry fish that you lost? You mentioned just going off on a bit of a tangent here.
Shoulders, yeah. I sort of got a ticket for the quarry in Essex, and there's a specific fish in there called shoulders. That one of the old guard. That I was like, I'd love to catch that one day. I spent. I think I caught it about a year into it, and caught a lot of the other nice fish, the pucker common and a few of the others, the first autumn. But shoulders was like the jewel at the time. I think there was ray in there at the time when I first joined, and that sadly passed away the first summer. But shoulders was the one that I wanted to catch. Just a brute of a carp. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo of it because I lost.
Did you see the guy the other week, this week, Tobe? I mean, we try and put as many pictures up as we possibly can on this podcast, right? And there's one guy that goes, what was it? Iconic pictures or something, and we didn't put up in. It's like, we do try, we.
I did see that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Like you said, we do try.
we try and put as many pictures.
Yeah.
Apologies,
if I had
one
for you, I would.
And if we had the picture to that guy, if we got
the
the picture, we'll put it up.
He's going to comment now, Ash, going, again, missed the picture.
I'm sorry, mate. If I can find it, well, there is a story behind it why I don't have the picture, and that's I took all my photos and videos off my Mac, put them onto a hard drive, and my hard drive stopped working.
Oh no!
So I lost basically everything from 2010 to 2015.
God blimey.
Well, there you go, mate. If he comments, that's why the picture's not there.
And it's brutal, absolutely brutal to. But that's where we're going back to the old cameras, isn't it?
Mm.
You get your film, you've got that film,
you've got a photo album.
You've got that album. Whereas I haven't printed proper pictures off for a long time. But yeah, going off on one there. But yeah, so shoulders. Basically, a lovely southerly come in. There's like a shallow area of the lake called the Shallows opposite 15, and opposite called Bommel, and then Summers Point. And so the wind was pushing up here, but we had a massive thunderstorm come in. and I mean like scary. There was only me and a mate on the lake called Lee, and he actually packed up about 11 o'clock at night when I'm done. I'm out of here. I was like, what? You are not leaving me on my own. He's like, no, I'm going. I was like, well, I'm not going anywhere. You know, I've been waiting. You know, my time is precious to me. Like the time I get to fish is the time I get to fish each week, and generally that doesn't change unless something's sort of scheduled in advance. And oh mate, honestly, this thunderstorm was off the scale. It was 2014. It was the summer that summer we had a lot of big.
Oh, I remember. I remember being fishing. That was quite at the start of the season, wasn't it?
Yes, like June time, yeah. And it was
flipping hell, yeah.
We had a few like back to back over a few weeks, and it was like hot period followed by massive thunderstorms. Anyway, so the next morning I woke up. I've been trying to get the bite on camera. I was like, I'm so close to it. I knew it was going to get caught. They just spawned, and my camera's died. I've killed all my 3. I think I had 3 batteries. I killed them all trying to get the bite on camera. Anyway, literally it's just died. I've walked up the bank 20 yards, the rod's gone. And I'm playing this fish, and it's up to its popped, and I'm like, oh, his shoulders. I was like, yes. Obviously, to be fair, it didn't really fight that much, but I got it in the net, and I was like, and you know, like you do, I staked it out in the lake with the net pointing up, and for some reason I didn't unhook it, and I normally go straight out, unhook it, so it's just sat in there waiting. I've rung my mate Lee. I said, you got to get back down here, I've got shoulders. He's turned up anyway. The fish has tried to jump out the net, and I've got the net like probably 2.5 foot above the water at an angle, and like it's tried to jump out second time, and Lee's gone, that's going to get out the net in a minute. I was like, no, it's not going to jump out the net. Anyway, the third time you've heard it proper tail walk, and I've just looked round my shoulder and seen this thing mid-30.
They're clever, aren't they? They do.
I honestly, it was just, and I'm like, shit, it's done it. And then I'm like, oh, I didn't take the rig out. So I'm like, run out there, because we were on the bank and it's staked out probably about 10 yards out in the lake, and I've run out there and the line's all wrapped around the pole and it's trying to take line, and I'm like taking the net apart to get the line. Anyway, I've played it a second time and it's gone in the net the second time, and I'm like, thank God for that. I'm putting that straight on the bank, and we were ready to do the photos, to be fair. Anyway, I've laid it on the bank and the hook's out. The hook's come out in the net, and I was like, well, there you go. So
you were lucky. I've seen a friend do that as well. He landed a fish and actually took the hook out, went down the bank to get, and we retained the fish in the net, and same as you, gets the guy back up to the swim, and he reckons it was a 40-pounder, and didn't know which one it was. Went to the net, and they do that. Yeah,
I've seen grass carp do it.
They're mental.
Friend of mine caught one of the big grass carp out of Horton, 40 plus, like, and it launched straight out the net.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Unhooked it straight out.
Yeah,
like it's one of them, isn't it? But yeah, I've never seen a big mirror. Certainly do. It was just the fact that it was the third time, and I've looked over my shoulder and gone, oh
God, you were lucky.
Yeah,
you were lucky there.
So.
We've talked about ghost stories as well. We had Chris Ball on the podcast, and Chris likes his. He got really excited, Toe, didn't he, when we mentioned ghost stories at Redmire Pool?
Didn't he?
Oh, he loved that. Yeah. You fish Redmire Pool, and you've had a similar ghostly experience.
Well, ever since childhood, really, I've wanted to go there. You know, because of passion for angling. It's just legendary. Obviously, it had a massive part in my fishing life, if you like. Gripped me from the moment that series came out, and obviously I got the invite to go. And to be fair, I'm not a great reader of books, and I hadn't read all these stories about ghosts. And it was only really the week before that Ali went, "Oh, you know it's haunted, don't you?" And I was like, is it? And I've seen a couple of ghosts, and I don't ever want to see another one.
You've seen a couple of... Right. Stop. Right, okay, so what did you see?
First one I saw, which at the time I just was like, no, that was nothing. I was driving home from a night out on the old A120, coming from Stortford back to Dunmow, and coming up to Takeley, and this figure ran across me, like literally from right to left, and I was like, I thought it was someone, and I sort of slowed down, and I was like, there's no one there, and I sort of was like, I don't really, that couldn't have been, that was that person, you know. To this day I'm like, that it was some figure that definitely crossed my path that night, and I was just like, so that was a bit weird. But going back a few years, we rented a house on an old moat, and apparently it was the site of an old castle. And yeah, this house, the castle had been knocked down, this house built, and I'd always sort of had weird vibes and stuff. Like the bedroom I was in had sort of a slanted roof above me. I always sort of heard stuff. I put it down to mice or rats or pigeons or whatever above me. Anyway, one day I've got this like veranda out of my bedroom, and it was a full moon. I've got the curtains, like not like thick curtains, just like a light curtain pulled, and I've seen this figure walk from, so the door's there, and this figure walked from left to right towards the door, and I've started screaming. I'm like, I'm only 15 at the time. I'm like, there's someone outside. Dad, where are you? There's someone out here. Mum walks in. I'm like, Mum, what are you doing? She's like, oh, it's fine, everything's fine. I'm like, Mum, don't go out there, there's someone out there. She's just like undone the lock, opened the door, like, yeah, everything's fine. I think this is all a bit like weird. The next morning I've gone down for breakfast. They've sat me down and said, look, we didn't want to tell you, but the house is haunted. And I was like, what do you mean the house is haunted? Well, it's touched your dad. I was like, what do you mean it's touched my dad? He's got out the shower one day, and apparently it's run her hand like down his arm. My uncle, who wasn't a blood uncle but was my uncle Chris, he refused to come and stay after an experience he had downstairs, because he used to sleep downstairs. The cleaner literally left one day, and on the day we were moving out, one of the removal men came out of the house and said, I'm not going back in there. And then the removal van broke down on the bridge of the moat, like just randomly just stopped, as if like,
you're not going anywhere.
She didn't want us to leave. But
Ooh.
yeah, it's
I've never seen a. Do you won't remember this? Back in the early 90s, there was a TV program on a Saturday night, and it was on Halloween night. And for some reason, the majority of the general public didn't seem to sort of catch on that this was a spoof. It was called Ghost Watch.
Yeah. Do
you remember that?
I remember it. Yeah.
This was on for. This is before you were born, Tobe.
Oh, right.
This was on for about 2.5 hours. So what it was they turned up to this house in England, didn't they, on this suburban estate?
Yeah.
And apparently the house was haunted. They had all the BBC cameras there for the night, and they were going to try and get a ghost sighting on camera. And it was all made up, wasn't it? But was it someone, Sarah Green or someone was in the studio with someone else, Mike, anyway, the two sort of, there we go.
Was that it?
That was, yeah, it was Sarah Green, and it was Michael Parkinson, and it was
11 million viewers. Well,
yeah, but this is the thing, right? So they went through the evening, and so they were in the studio, right? We're going to the house now. We've just seen a sighting, and as the show went on, it got more and more intense, and the ghost was called Pipes. I remember the ghost was called. But by the end, and it was only right at the very, very end that anyone actually realised that it wasn't real. It was flipping terrifying. I think the BBC, it might say on there actually, it had more complaints than any other.
Could you imagine that today?
You couldn't do it, could you?
Do it, could you?
Yeah.
So they did this whole thing that was just.
It was mate. It was brilliant, and I was going fishing the next day, and I was getting my fishing gear ready that night, and I was so scared at the end, I didn't even want to go out to the garage.
Well, that's it. As anglers, we spend a lot of time alone, don't we? You know.
Are we going back to Radmar Pool now?
Well, let's go there. But
I can't believe they got away with something like that.
Mate,
really.
it was really good. It was very, very well done.
all the characters look a bit bloody spooky, don't
No,
they?
they do look scary.
Yeah, no, I'm not. No, I don't watch anything like that.
That was better than any horror movie because it's like Blair Witch Project,
No. where
yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Even that look like cameras, like it's live.
It was flipping scary, and it was on at like 8 o'clock at night. Kids were watching
It's
it.
like
as well.
Paranormal Activity, that isn't it?
Yeah, no, it really was. It really was. Anyway, Redmire.
Yeah, Redmire. Yeah, so I'm very fortunate to get invited to Redmire anyway, and the week before obviously got told. So I randomly, it was September, so coming up to Halloween, like B&M had some ghost figures and stuff, so I bought one and thought I'd scare the lads with it. Anyway, we turned up there. A lot led up to Redmire. Like, I wasn't in the best place because my nan had just passed away that week. My mum had been in hospital. My dad was losing his house. Like, there was so much going on. I actually didn't think I was going to make it, but my family went to me, "You've got to go. This is the trip of the lifetime." My mum knew how much it meant to me to go there. And Nate was like massively behind me. She was like, "You've got to go, have some time away." I turned up there. For the first couple of days, I was like, I didn't really want to be there. But I think it was the second night that Ali took some photos. So during the day, Ali's taking photos of his bivvy from the other side of the lake. Was it the Willow Pitch I think he was in? And he's then gone to bed that night and he's sat in his bivvy in this spot scrolling through his photos for the day. And obviously this picture of him that he's taken from the other side of the lake of his bivvy door and everything, and he's sat in that bivvy door now. And he's like, shit. He's zoomed in and there's this figure of a skull sat exactly where he is now sitting.
What?
I think you got a picture. I'll give it to you today, Tom.
I've got close up there. Is that the
I
right
don't
one?
know if can any, you know.
We're looking at a grainy picture there of
It is very grainy. Now,
Right.
whether you can.
I don't know how.
But
There
can you
was a-
imagine sitting on your bed chair and scrolling into your bivvy door
Yeah.
and seeing? I can see it. Some people can see it. Other people say, "Oh, it's nothing." But there is.
Is that where your cross was then, Ted? We're looking at the bivvy
Yeah,
now.
literally there. There is
Is that right?
there is a face. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a face of a skull sat.
Let me pop it up so everyone can see as well. So are we looking, say, in about this area here?
There, exactly there.
Yeah, that's where I can see it.
Yeah.
I'm going to zoom
I
right
don't know if I
in
can
for-
see anything or not, but
I'm
I'll
gonna-
take your word for it.
I know
Oh, you
it's-
can see it now.
I know it's grainy, but I'll zoom in for everybody watching.
Can you see the two eyes, the nose, and the mouth, and the sort of? Can you see that,
I
Simon?
can see it's here, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
I know.
No,
I know
can
what
see
you're
it,
talking
yeah.
about. It's quite pixelated, isn't
No,
it?
yeah, the
obviously?
picture
So,
doesn't help, but yeah,
so
that's for everybody watching. It's where we're looking. Where
But it's just bizarre.
right.
Um,
And that scared him, I take it.
yeah, he packed up and moved this side of the lake.
Well, and to be fair to him,
Yeah.
he's not somebody that would, for anybody that knows him, he's not somebody that would really put something on like that. Like, if that scares him, that means it really has scared him.
Yeah, this is Ali White.
Oh, sorry, I thought
this
you
isn't-
meant...
No, not Mr. Hamidi.
Got you, sorry.
Bless him. And
but still, no,
yeah,
I can see it. I'd like to see in the comment. Like,
Well, I mean,
everybody
at least you've got the full Redmire experience anyway.
well, yeah, that was only the start of it.
Right. Okay.
So
I want to leave it in the comments. See if anybody else can see it. Let us know below.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how many people.
Yeah. Leave the comments.
it's just the most bizarre feeling. So we went on a new moon in September. So it was pitch black. Because obviously it's in the bottom of a valley. And it was dark. And I mean seriously dark at night. There's no light pollution, obviously, from anywhere. So it was as black as black. And I got a bite one night. And I remember thinking to myself, I was playing this fish. It fell off. Oh yeah, there's a bit of a random picture.
Yeah,
of some-
I'm just being nosy now. What?
And
What's
the-
sorry? What's
the
going on
cat-
there?
We're not looking at the bivvy, are we?
Yeah.
That's a great
I-
photo.
That's a good
I'm just
picture.
going to throw that up. Bro. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, Ash, but
Yeah,
I've got to
that's
show.
all right.
That is incredibly random. Yeah.
well in nature there, aren't you?
No, I think there would be some people that would just admire the bivvy. Actually,
That was a fish. Yeah, that was. I was fishing stumps, and I sent my Tempest off to Army Andy a few weeks before.
Army
said,
Andy, that's it. Yeah.
Can you get it done for me before I go to Redmire?
Yeah.
I even got those peak thing, what they called the
skull caps.
The skull caps. I got one of them delivered, and I actually sprayed it up from the oak trees leaves from Redmire while I was there. Like the first day I was there. I've still got it now. I still use that bivvy now. At the moment, it's battered and bruised, but I still use it. But yeah, so I'm playing this fish and it's fell off. But literally just before it fell off, I felt this real heavy feeling above my shoulder, and I then fucking looked round, and I just remember putting my rod up against the tree, just going back in my bivvy and not getting out till it was light, because it was horrific.
Well, what did it feel like?
Just like a big pressure, like
what? I mean, coming down.
Yeah, it was just the most bizarre feeling, and obviously I've had a few experiences. And
what about temperature and stuff like that? I mean, we
any cold chills or anything?
At Tails Up, we've got a room
that's the freezer room, though, isn't it?
No, there's I obviously Tails Up where we moved to was a derelict building, and I put partitions and made it what it is today, and. But whenever anyone goes in that room, there's just, like you say, that cold, horrible, it just hits you, and you get this weird vibe. But I put it down to, and one day it was opening the door for me and all sorts, but it was down to they were building another building on literally across the yard from us, and I think it upset whatever spirit it was that day. But literally it was weird. Like I'm wheeling Willie, been about to open the door's just opened. And I'm like, okay. So I started
you
talking
try
to
to ignore it, don't you?
Well, I just embraced it. I was like, well, it's clearly
the BBC need to follow us around a bit, don't they? You don't need to make all this spoof stuff. So what was the rest of the trip like on Redmire after that then?
Well, the next night I'm laying in bed, middle of the night, and it was either the same night or the next night. And for anyone who's fishing next time, just run your finger across your bivvy and see the sound it makes for about 6-8 inches.
Oh,
anyway,
that's scary.
Right, so I'm facing this way.
I can see
bivvy front door.
This is going, yeah.
And just going, and I'm like, the fuck was that? And it's just done it a second time. And then by that time I'm like, okay, what is going on? And I've got out. There's nothing there. And I'm fishing stumps, so there is a fence just behind me, and then where those cows were, obviously, there's no footpath or anything. Anyway, the next morning I've told the lads about it. I properly I just put my duvet over me and went, even if I get a bite, I'm not getting out.
Zip it all the way up. That's it, yeah.
And I've told the lads about it the next day, and then because Ali's moved round, he's moved from the willow, I think it's the willow pitch from the far side, the other side of the lake to our side, but he's actually gone into the oaks, like the first swim as you go in the car park, and it's happened to him the next night. He's gone, I thought you were joking, Ash, but it's done it to him as well.
Oh God.
But there's, since then obviously you've heard various, Ali's told me more stuff, that there was an exorcism and all that, and
Chris was on about that, wasn't he?
Yeah, there's definitely something that's.
Do you think some people are more sensitive to that stuff than others? I'm not
saying
for
that sure.
Because you're a legitimate guy, and
for sure. There's the estate lake that I fished back, from the late 90s. There's a lad on there who saw this monk, and obviously completely freaked him out by all accounts. I don't know him personally, I only know the story that goes behind it. But he went to this, is it medium?
A medium, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's now a medium himself.
All right.
Because she went, whatever it is you've got it. And he now apparently is a medium, which is bizarre. And other friends of mine have seen the monk, walk down towards one of the steps and things like that. And there's a peg called Peg 1 that if I was fishing there alone, generally I wouldn't go near it. I'd always fish what we call the stumps area.
You look generally freaked out a little bit when you're talking about this stuff.
It's
you said you're quite superstitious as well.
I've just thrown that out because
there's Alfie. Yeah.
That picture is labelled Alfie keeping guard.
Yeah.
But
it's weird.
Did he act? Because they say dogs can really sense that kind of
more sensitive. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. Did he have any strange?
No, not at all.
No,
he doesn't care.
He does.
Just carried on.
As long as he's with me, he's absolutely sweet. Like he knows he's being looked after and
he's happy.
Doesn't matter if you're terrified. He's there just chilling.
But he so the story goes back to 2008 with him. I had him from 6 weeks old, and I took him to Halton for the first time as a 12-week-old pup.
Wow.
And he literally fitted in the palms of my hand. Palm of my hand when I first got him, palms of my hand. And that first night I got a bite. And I've nearly squashed the poor bloody little thing because he's like sleeping up by my chest. And ever since then, when I get a bite, if he's in my sleeping bag, he is out that bag before I get the chance to move. So he now goes down to the any time you get a bite, he's there. He's at the front of the swim looking, seeing where's the fish. Like, and yeah, I was very
Have
lucky.
you ever noticed he's like jumped off of you and sat by the rods and then the rod's just gone?
It is a bit weird, but we will walk around the lake and he will go to certain swims and start sniffing the air.
Yeah.
And generally the fish are in that area.
That's cool though.
Like,
yeah.
he is nuts. But yeah, that fish in the net was my first fish out of there on the third day. I think it was the Wednesday. And that sort of started a spell of bites. I was fishing over to Bramble Island. So there should have been 4 of us to fish that session. And Rupert, bless him, didn't turn up for one reason or another. He loves a no-show, Rupert Whiteman. he come on these trips and then don't turn up. But Ali, and there were 3 of us. And so I left. I was at the end, but the other 2 lads were to my left. And I left that sort of half for Rupert if he was going to turn up, but he didn't turn up. And the fish were all, like, the wind was just pushing down there nicely towards the shallows. And I see these fish showing off I think it's called Bramble Island, isn't it? You know, like that classic scene where he catches that fish on Passion for Angling off the top. And so I started baiting it. And because I went in there, I was like, I'm going to catch them on maggots out in the middle and put a load in. Well, all I caught was blimmin' eels for 24 hours. Kept lassoing themselves, and very quickly, because it's effectively an old estate lake, isn't it? And it's very similar to the estate lake that I fished in Essex. So I knew sort of how I would go about fishing from what rigs, etc. But I just started fishing how I used to fish there.
So in the picture, we're looking at just one rod, is that?
Yeah, one. I had 2 rods out. Obviously, I was fishing the far margin in the end with my left-hand rod, and then down to Bramble Island. You can actually see just about the bridge. And I was casting over to this cove where they kept showing, and I started baiting it, and about 24 hours in, I got my first bite. And yeah, it was a 24-pound common. And of course, passion for angling is all about 24-pound commons. Of course, the first fish I catch is a 24-pound common. I was just like, and it was the most mint. I think you do have a picture of it, Toby.
What was your Redmire experience like then? Did you
There it is. Look at that.
Did you? On the dam.
Mate, his mouth.
On the dam as well.
Was
the Redmire experience for you what you expected?
I think if I'd turned up there without everything going on in my life previous, it was magical. It was magical anyway. Once I'd sort of settled in and got my head round fishing, rather than thinking about everything else that was going on. But, you know, aside from the spookiness of it, it was absolutely magical. You know, and to catch a fish like that with a mouth. Genuinely, I don't know if that's ever been caught. Did I give you a picture of the mouth? I don't know if I did.
Yeah, I think I have.
Was that? So this is obviously one of the more recent fish to be introduced to the lake.
No, this was before. That was I believe that's an original.
Was it?
So you see the trees still there. So they've obviously done the work and stuff. So I was again very fortunate to fish it.
Yeah. So we're looking at a picture of the mouth now. It doesn't look like there's too much damage there.
Like, I mean, how many times has that been caught?
All.
I doubt that's been caught a lot. That fish.
Still got the curtain on it, hasn't it?
John Wilson would say it's never been caught before, wouldn't he? Bless him.
You don't buy that then, Ash?
No, I don't buy it. But I do sort of buy into this thing. Once they've been caught once, they can get caught twice. Because I actually caught a fish a few weeks ago filming for Carp Angle, which will be out soon, and that fish supposedly has never been caught since it was stocked 5-6 years ago, and it's since been caught a second time.
I mean, Dan mentioned with Gigantica. I don't think it applies to all waters. I don't think there's necessarily a rule to it. But Dan mentioned with Gigantica as well, with the stock fish in there, that a lot of those fish didn't get caught for a long time. You just wonder whether it's once they've had a hook in their mouth,
then they're not.
That's it.
Yeah.
That affects that affects the sensitivity of the mouth a little bit.
Possibly, for sure.
You know, because I mean, some lakes they don't. They just hang themselves straight away, don't they? But there's, you know, like I say, I think Dan was saying with Gigantica, some of those fish took a long time to get caught. Those new ones. So,
well, we do it with our lakes. We've stocked a lot of fish, and some of those fish haven't been out, but we see them.
Yeah.
You know, and
be interesting, wouldn't it? First time they get hooked, whenever they do get hooked, whether you know, whether they do start getting caught regularly after that or not.
That's it, for sure. Yeah.
Getting on to Cleveley, and you know, you mentioned Carp Angle and stuff. So.
Yeah.
So Cleveley Mere now is called Ashbury Fisheries.
It is indeed. Yeah, we in 2019 we purchased the lease. Myself, Del, and Rob come together as a little team, and obviously bought it off Ben Lofting, who'd previously owned it. Yeah, that's quite a special moment.
It's a nice
that was
picture. Yeah.
The first autumn we took it over. Yeah, we, you know, again, for 30 years I've wanted my own lakes, you know, and to get the opportunity now to put my sort of vision and ideas into practice, it's been a massive learning curve. We've been very fortunate. Some of the lads we've had help us, specifically George and James. Obviously Del's like the father I never had. Like, he's taught me so much in the last couple of years. And
they knew a little bit more about this stuff than you did, or were you all in this together?
To be fair, Del I met on Braxted Front Lake around 2010, and he's like a retired policeman, but he knows everything. Like, he's just a wealth of knowledge. Like, there's nothing he hasn't done or seen in his life.
So Del, I take it, is the one on the right hand side.
One on the right, yeah, and Rob's just retired as well, and he was looking for something to do, and I randomly turned up and went, "Oh, would you like to buy into a lake?" And you know, here we are
Cleveley
now.
Mere, I mean, Hendricks, you previously caught Hendricks. It's a fish, especially around Essex, that was well known and made the fishery.
Yeah, it made it famous, I guess.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, proper. I think you got a picture of Hendricks as well, and that. I caught that off the top, 2010.
That was a beautiful, beautiful carp.
Just lovely. Isn't
Died was it last year?
Died last year, yeah, unfortunately, first summer.
What a fantastic carp that was.
But I managed, you know, all being well, I've got some of his spawn growing on. So, they started spawning last year, and I put the drone up, and I could see specific fish spawning in certain areas of the lake, so I went out and picked. And then the second time they spawned, I actually saw Hendricks while we were out on the boat, so I just grabbed a load of spawn. We think he was a male.
Again, big fins on it as well.
And never used to drop. Oh, massive fin. Like, look at the size of his pecs. But he was taking mixers off the top. It was just, you just see this massive back.
Yeah,
coming
a bit
out.
of a giveaway, I bet. When
I was fishing with my mate and Joe, and I'll never forget him coming up. Literally, I just saw this mouth and the shoulders first. It was like a shark, you know, the classic. Massive shoulders come out, then this mouth, and just sunk down. Whack! I've hooked that big. Joe's laughing at me, and then.
How old was he?
I'm not really sure. I mean, the stories go that he where did he come from? Walthamstow, I believe. But we don't really know. It's a bit like Dippy, isn't it? Not quite as bad as Dippy, but he lived a happy life. To be fair, got caught a few times, made a lot of people happy. Some people didn't catch him, but a lot of people did, and yeah. And
so you've got the Mere and you've got the top lake. So I mean, what did you do when you took over the and what have you learnt as a consequence of?
It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Anyone who thinks owning a fishery is easy, as you know, there's there's so many different aspects to it. You know, as a child turning up to a lake that's overgrown and wild to a degree is just magical, isn't it? But when you're a fishery manager type thing, you realise actually it's not so good, you know. So we've had a lot of work, obviously, with otters and stuff present in the local area. We had to properly fence the lakes, and I decided to electrify them rather than do the big overturn, you know, style fences. So it's more in keeping with the countryside. And obviously there was a lot of hard work, graft, getting in control of the outside of the lakes the first year, really, to make sure they were secure. And then last winter we've done a lot of work on the lake itself, and you know, we've raised the canopies and we limed the mere, and it, like, the water quality this year is just amazing. Like, the fish are just doing so well now, and it's the whole thing, you know, it's all working hand in hand. And
how do you feel? Yeah, like removing snags and stuff like that. Do you find that makes a?
I've actually put areas in where they can go to rest after they've been caught. If they like, we put a rope across one swim so that they've got an area where they can go and just chill if they need to. And then other areas I've made, like, not non-fishing areas, but where you can stalk only, and then that effectively gives them a little safe haven at night and stuff. So I do believe that, like, I've fished a lot of different lakes, and it really frustrates me when clubs rip out snags, and you see it time and time again where a fishery is settled, and then they go, oh, we'll rip that out and rip this out, but that's their home. And these fish are some of them now are 30 years old. Imagine someone coming in and ripping your bedroom apart. You wouldn't feel the same the next night, and I think it does stress them out. And so although we've taken areas away, I've been very mindful that I've wanted to give them areas where they can equally go to, be fed and rest to recuperate after they have been caught. So it's a balancing act.
I guess it depends on the size of the venue as well. I mean, they're not tremendously big lakes, are they? And
no.
You know, you might have certain waters where they can just get out the way anyway, but it's quite conflicting, that, isn't it? I mean, a lot of fisheries guys, you know, is like clear the snags, and you know. Yeah,
I think you can make safe havens for them without them being dangerous.
You're thinking like more about probably the fish rather than some fishery managers is like, we want to see the fish getting caught, which is...
Yeah, I don't want them getting caught.
Yeah.
That's of course I do. I want anglers to turn up there and catch the fish, because that's ultimately what you are there to do. But you don't want to get them caught too much, and you also need them to have rest. So this is one thing. So the way I'm doing it is a little bit out there, a little bit out of the box. You know, like, Cleveley used to be known as, you turn up on a Friday night, you couldn't get a swim. Whereas last year, the first year we had it, I made a maximum of 10 anglers. This year it's now a maximum of 8 anglers, so that everyone who turns up there, whether they're an exclusive or a member, knows that they're going to get a decent peg and a decent area to fish. And I think that's really important, because a lot of people have less time to fish now. When you do go, it's really important for me so that people feel like they're not just slotting in a swim for the sake of slotting in a swim. And when you do get a swim, you've got a good area to fish, and you've got a good chance. Like the Mere, genuinely, every swim on the Mere, you've always got a chance of getting a bite from. So
the Mere's a lovely lake, but it's quite narrow in places as well, isn't it? And it's like, you know, you wouldn't want too many anglers on there. It's no,
and you used to have people literally on what they call Lifebuoy, Point 2, and those two areas fish the same water, and it just conflicts with each other. So yeah, the way I've pegged it now, it means you've got a nice amount of areas to fish without being affected by other anglers, and that is really important. I've set it up how I like to fish. And the last thing, I fished Point 2, you know, 10 years ago I'd fish Point 2, someone set up on Lifebuoy, and it'd be like, oh, that's me done, you know, I might as well pack up and go home now. So yeah, it's just those ideas I've had in my head. Obviously, you know, I always said to Ben, you know, if you ever sell Cleveley, I'd buy it from you, or I'd be interested. And then obviously they had the problems they had, and I thought, oh, that's it, done. But then 2 or 3 years later, the fishery was settled. It looked good. The opportunity came up, and yeah, we took it. So.
Yeah. No, crikey! If you want to buy a fishery and you can lay your hands on the cat, I mean, somewhere like that, you've introduced some fish into.
Yeah, both lakes.
Yeah.
we've handpicked VS. Viv at VS was very welcoming, and he's let us go down there a couple of times and handpick his fish. Mike Wilmot, we got some fish from, and then Simo let me go down this winter and handpick 10 out of one of his ponds. And so, I'm quite choosy with the fish I want to go in. You look at, there's certain fish you want, isn't there? And there's certain fish in my, it's only my personal opinion that you don't want. But
is there a certain age that you would prefer to be putting the fish in at, and the quantity of fish that you're going to introduce gradually as well?
Yeah, that's something we've learned. Obviously, I'm very green to all this. Again, it's like starting at tails up all over again. I'm learning on my feet almost, and I've learned. Initially, the first year we bought some C3s, some C4s, some C5s, but the C3s have by far done the best out of all the 3-year brackets. And it is right when Simon Scott turns around and says C4s, C3s are your best ones. They're not wrong, because literally some of them C3s have gone from £6-7 to £16. And I saw one the other day that, when I was with you actually, that must have been over £20, and that only went in December 2019. A year and a half ago, not even a year and a half ago, and it's gone from probably £6-7.
Why do you think the older ones struggle to adapt?
I think because they're like us, isn't it? At 40, if you move country or move house, it's quite daunting. But as a child, take it in your stride and you just go again, don't you?
And it's so tempting when you start a fishery, isn't it, to want to put bigger fish in there and get it rolling quickly. But
there was me thinking the C5s, but they've only done, generally, a couple of them are done £3 or £4, but most of them are done between £1 and £2. Whereas the C4s I put in have almost caught up with them already. So, I would definitely buy C3s and C4s. Yes, you think you've got to wait longer, but actually, the other thing is, these guys are producing so many fish. Yes, they're keeping so many on to grow on each year bracket, but some of those fish that maybe didn't do quite as well in those ponds still have the potential to go really, really big. So at C3s, I don't know the figures, but they're probably keeping, say they produce 100,000 C3s, for example, and they keep 10,000. Well, there's still 90,000 fish there that to sell on, and a proportion of them are going to be shooters. And we've been fortunate in the top lake that literally I think 6 out of the 10 have doubled in weight or more, which is
and those shooters,
amazing.
It's just it's a bit of a lottery, I guess, with that as well, isn't it?
Complete lottery. From the 10, 6 out of 10 have done it, but at the same time you don't want them all shooting. You want those steady ones doing £2-3 a year, because in 5-10 years time they'll still be there, whereas potentially, who knows, with them bigger fish. I think VS just did a 53 pounder. It's 10 years old. It's going to be interesting to see whether it's still here. You guys have had out of one of the embryo lakes, isn't it? That common.
Yeah.
60 pound.
I know.
Yeah. But I think that's a young fish again.
Relatively, yeah.
And it's whacking the weight on. But is it going to be here in 10 years' time? I don't know.
Yeah, it's too early to say, isn't it, really, with that stuff?
So,
but
But so you want a mix, don't you?
Yeah.
It's very important to have some of them fish that are doing £5-6 a year, and then your others doing £2-3 a year.
And you run it so you've got exclusives on there, and you run it as a syndicate as well.
Yeah, the syndicate's very close knit, very small, and it's going to get smaller each year as well, I think, now for the summer period, because again, I don't want now the exclusives have really taken off. I don't want it busy when it's not exclusively booked. And this year, the way things have been, you take over October 2019 and then you're in lockdown by March 2020, and your whole year's like, really, is this happening? So yeah, it's been interesting and hard, but equally, without those lakes, I don't know where I'd have been. I genuinely don't know where I'd have been. They've been a saviour for me and my family. So
no, I'm sure they grow. I'm sure they carry on. The lake's in the right hands, and
well, you can only do what you do, and we're trying, and you learn as you go along, don't you? But for us as a family, for my kids to have 6 months off school and have that experience, my missus, who works in the NHS, a lot of pressure under her to have that get out, we've been very fortunate at the same time as obviously being very affected. So.
Hey, you gave me some of these. I'm going to use these, actually. what they call corns. Are they on the market yet, or?
They're literally about to be released. So yeah, by the time this goes live, I reckon they will be. They'll be on the website.
So we've got. We don't plug market things on the podcast, but you mentioned well, we probably are here, but no, you showed me these, and I think these are a good alternative to using plastic.
Well, we ban plastic on
Right.
our lakes, and a lot of other lakes are now banning plastic hook baits because ultimately, if you crack off or you get bitten off by a pike and you've got plastic on the end, your rig is live indefinitely until that hook's rusted away, which
Yeah.
can take a long time. So it's live not only to the fish but also the bird life. So what we've done, we've obviously trademarked the logo. We've got our registered design now for the hook baits themselves, and we've imitated the perfect sweet corn effectively. And
How
yeah,
buoyant are those?
So we do them in two sizes. The corns, they are little corns and large corns, and the little corns, two of them are perfect for like a German rig, swivel off the hook. And the large ones are perfect for your Ronnies, so or stiff link or whatever you want to use them on. And I've been testing them. Well, it's been a 5-year thing actually. It's nearly 5. It'll be 5 years this year that I first came up with the idea and started making them. It got put on the back burner, but that was, I was selling tails up this time a year ago. And I always had that in my mind that I wanted to do it, and that was
quite labour intensive, that, isn't it? Because
it is at the moment, but hopefully in time it won't be, because we've got plans to move it forward again. But what we've done with them, they're not flavoured, so we're doing them in 3 different colours: white, yellow, and pink as normal. So you can actually flavour them with your own specific combinations. So whatever bait company you're using, you can buy these. Put so if you're using mainline or specific goos, they love the goo. They're brilliant with the goo. But like the large corns, we say if you put 1 mil, and they suck up the flavour really well.
Do they?
And they're still good 24 hours later as well.
What are they? Sorry, Ash. What are they called?
Corns.
They're called corns.
They
Yeah.
are called corns.
You've got
Yeah, and they're quite porous as well. So they do release.
yeah, for sure. They're basically a safe hook bait, like a pop up.
Yeah.
And you can flavour them, and I've been using them the last few weeks since we've been producing them properly, and I've had some amazing fish. I think I'll give you a picture, Tobe, of a common I caught.
Which colour? Because we've got yellow, white, and pink here.
Yeah, the two of the yellow ones, 2 of the large yellow corns caught me a fish called the Classic out of the mere.
Yeah.
This weekend just gone. So it's an amazing fish. Like I've caught on the little ones and the large ones, and they're mega. They are.
Well, I like using a bit of sweet corn, so it's
There you go.
it's a very useful alternative. Oh, we got a video here.
Oh, this is we had a little animation done.
Right. Okay. Right.
Nice. That's smart, that.
Best of luck with everything with that, anyway.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ash, I've really enjoyed this podcast. I mean, it's been quite a long one as well, hasn't it? But there's still loads of stuff to talk about.
We've skipped over a little bit there at the end, haven't we? But it's been amazing.
I think with the podcast as well, it's not like we don't necessarily have a designated format. We kind of go with it a little bit and see where it goes. But yeah, I mean, you could probably talk for
once you get me started 1-to-1, it's I could go on forever.
No, but like I say, you're very innovative, and you've people probably don't realise you've created quite a lot of tackle for the industry and come up with some really, really good ideas, and as well as catching a lot of carp. So
that's the main thing, catching carp, isn't it? But I enjoy it. I enjoy like everything to do with fishing. So whether that's designing stuff or doing it, and catching the fish, and now managing lakes, it's dreamhood stuff, isn't it?
Well, it makes for a really good podcast because we've got so much to talk about.
Ever since a child. Sorry, you can't stop me now, can you?
Ever since a child, he's wanted to come on the podcast.
No, to be fair, when you asked me, I not shocked, but I was equally honoured. So it's amazing.
Well, the shows are going out weekly now, and this gives us the opportunity. I think, the audience have got to appreciate as well. You can have the big, well-known guests on the show. But we all know that there's a lot of people out there that are as equally as interesting. The audience just need to give people a chance.
That's it.
And equally as entertaining. And Toby, you've been entertained?
I've really enjoyed this one, though. Honestly, yeah. Thank you for coming on, Ash.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much
Thanks,
for coming
Toby.
on the show.
The Thinking Tackle Podcast.